Part 11. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 101. When Tu Qiang saw it, Bai Jiao's eyes flashed fiercely, and she flicked her 10 fingers. As if they had life and will, the 10 flying knives made a big turn in the sky and shot directly towards Yilin. Yilin's eyes narrowed. But under his feet, a circle of light about 3 meters in diameter appeared. A mysterious rune appeared in the aperture. And Yilin was standing right in the center of the aperture at this moment. Countless tentacles stretched out from the ground and wrapped tightly around Yilin's feet, making it impossible for him to break away or move. Not even one step. Ha 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 ha. Bai Jiao laughed wildly, her face was ferocious, and her cute face was also distorted. Do you think you are the only one with control skills? If I had no backup, would I be waiting for you to come up? Now, you are the one who comes to the door. Suffer death. I will accept your skills. It's a mind control skill. Yilin took the shortest time to determine the type of aperture under her feet, but she calmly stretched out her palm. Invisible fluctuations surged out with Yilin as the center. An invisible shield formed around Yilin. Psychokinesis shield. The simplest way to use telekinesis. 1. After half a month of special training, Yilin has become familiar with this power again, and its operation is not at all obscure. In an instant, the 10 flying knives hovering strangely in front of Yilin. Unable to move forward even 1 centimeter. What? The pride on Bai Jiao's face suddenly froze, and she could no longer smile. What kind of skill are you doing? Impossible. Yilin pressed down her palm, and the 10 flying knives suddenly sank and stuck into the ground. After the 10 flying knives were inserted into the ground, they were still shaking uncontrollably, as if they would rise from the ground at any time. It's too late to say it, but it's soon to be. From the time Yilin activated the mind control skill under her feet to Yilin blocking the flying knife, it only took a few seconds. After a few seconds, the trap under Yilin's feet also lost its effectiveness. Yilin is free. Suddenly, Bai Jiao came to her senses. Have you known that my flying knife can track you? If not. Yilin smiled. Impossible. How could you know? Actually, it's not hard to guess. With a severe lack of vision, the opponent's flying knife actually hit accurately, which already made Yilin feel a little weird. What's even weirder is that the parts where everyone was hit by the flying knives were either their hands, shoulders, or faces, which made Yilin think of another possibility. Coordinate positioning. Combined with Lu Nianan's uncoordinated behavior, Yilin roughly guessed the opponent's skill type based on his own experience. Bai Jiao's skills should have 3 limitations. First, you must touch the throwing object with your own hands. Second, the speed of the thrown object shall not exceed the release speed. Third, you can only hit coordinates. And this coordinate is most likely a part of Bai Jiao's body. For example, blood. The water Lu Nianan used to wash his hands was mixed with Bai Jiao's blood. Because the blood concentration is so low, it is impossible to tell whether it is mixed with blood on the surface. So Lu Nianan, under Bai Jiao's instruction, placed coordinates on Yilin and others. As long as he flies to take action, he can hit the target chosen by Bai Jiao. Till death. However, because Bai Jiao's strength attribute is not high, the speed of the flying knife is not too fast, and the power is not too strong, so it was easily blocked by Yilin's telekinesis shield. It was also because Bai Jiao knew her own weaknesses that she chose to use flying knives to apply poison to make up for the lack of lethality of her skills. When Bai Jiao witnessed Yilin casually blocking her own kill, she knew clearly that her kick hit the alloy plate. Bang bang hard. My face hurts and my feet hurt. Let me guess. After Yilin blocked the flying knife, she thought for 3 seconds and then said a name. The Holy Empire of the Incas. Bai Jiao's eyes suddenly widened. Yuren smiled. Now, he understood. No need to say more, no more questions to ask. Wait. Don't kill me, Bai Jiao suddenly forced out a smile. I can do whatever you want. Master. Master. I call you master. Don't you hesitate to like this kind of tone. Master, please punish me, As she spoke, Bai Jiao twisted her waist, preparing to lift up her student uniform. Yilin sighed. I finally understand why Lu Nianan is willing to be the mole. It turns out that he really likes this tune. In the blink of an eye, the blood jasmine turned into countless blood threads, rolling towards Bai Jiao like a wave. Yilin did not choose close combat. Killing from a distance is safe. Apostle 1010, kill the second level apostle and obtain death points, 1542 points. The current number of death points remaining, 3892. Get chaos value at 325. The relics of second order apostle, Bai Jiao, will now be randomly selected. It's time for the lucky draw again. No matter how many times she comes, Yilin always has some expectations. After all, what you can draw from the opponent's box depends entirely on luck. Etc. Luck. Yilin thought of this incident and suddenly had a bad feeling. The text paused for a few seconds. The results finally emerged. Get mediocre banana peel. A card appeared in Yilin's hand. On the front of the card, there is a garbage bag. The bag contains several crumpled banana peels. It's actually an ordinary series. Yilin didn't know whether to be happy or sad. Bai Jiao's 3 skills were all quite useful, but she didn't expect to draw any of them. Yilin thought of his luck and charm attributes that were constantly being discounted. He seemed to feel that the existence of the European emperor was drifting away from him. With some helplessness, Yilin checked the properties of the new props. Mediocre banana peel. Grade none. Explanation: this is an ordinary bag of banana peels. There is nothing special about it except that you can't help but step on it and then fall to the ground. Number of uses, 10/10. This little girl actually has such a prop on her body? Why didn't you come out just now? Could it be that it doesn't work? In fact, Yilin's guess was not wrong. This series of ordinary props is Bai Jiao's reward from the previous world. Until her death, she didn't even figure out how to use this banana peel. Keep it in the corner of the storage space. Finally it fell into Yilin's hands. 10 times. This prop is a bit interesting. And there seems to be no limit to how many banana peels you can use at one time. Yilin instantly thought of 5 tactics. For maximum power output. All 10 banana peels were thrown out, and a bunch of people in front of them smashed and ate their shit. The picture was so beautiful, I can't even imagine it. Silently putting away the mediocre banana peel card, Yilin thought about everything that happened in this no man's land. The Holy Empire of the Incas. It was just a guess at first, but Bai Jiao's reaction before her death confirmed Yilin's guess. Present, past, future. Countless memories intertwined in Yilin's mind. Lots of chaos. It was hard to figure it out for a while. Yilin didn't understand why that country would choose this time to take action against Mali. At this point in time, Mali's talent in research and invention has not yet become famous overseas. Then why? After thinking for a while, Yilin couldn't come up with a result yet. I can only suppress the doubts in my heart for the time being. Let's not mention it for now. Before killing Bai Jiao, Yilin activated the skill Bloodthirsty Disaster and accumulated a layer of Bloody Will. Yilin's status has an extra layer of Bloody buff. Blood Intention level 1, add 2.1. This is only the first level. The total attributes of the Apostle's strength, agility, and spirit are basically above 10 points. Approximately equal to 1 Henry Zhang. In other words, each level can accumulate at least 2.0 attribute values. If the total attributes of 5 layers of Xiaoyang are accumulated, Yulin can even easily recreate the scene of the last night in Gawu Mountain, where the ground shook with every move he made. This skill is so terrifying. No wonder just the first star skill requires 10,000 chaos points. If it weren't for the bloodthirsty disaster skill's short duration, long CD time, and serious sequelae, it could be called a magical skill. Even in the future, Yulin has never seen such a terrifying skill. After Yulin returned to the team, she didn't explain much. Although Molly was curious about what happened after Yulin left, there were outsiders watching, so Molly couldn't ask in detail. Yulin just told Wang Bing, "It's solved. Done." In the final panic, Zhu Xiaoyuan finally made a second round of observations using the town hospital as the observation point. But then, no matter who they were, they didn't dare to move forward to the next observation point. Because, too many people died. A team that originally had 13 people ended up with only 6 people left. Yulin did not explain to the rest of the investigation team the reason for killing Lu Nianan. In addition to Wang Bing and Molly, everyone else finally understood that the seemingly ordinary student turned out to be a murderous devil. No one dared to talk to Yulin again. Even Zhu Xiaoyuan stayed away from Yulin and did not dare to say anything. This investigation took a total of 12 hours and 34 minutes. These scientists, who were obsessed with research all day long, were all in a state of confusion. After coming out of the no man's land, they felt like they were in another world. The dangers in no man's land originally lay in the ubiquitous gray fog and the collapse of ruins. But this was also the first time they had tasted the feeling of being hunted. Not comfortable. Whether it leaves a psychological shadow is hard to say. After Wang Bing drove the bus into Qingcheng, Yulin contacted Zhao Yulong immediately. Yulin did not elaborate on the details when contacted. When Zhao Yulong thought that the entire investigation team had returned safely, he was eagerly preparing to greet Molly and others at the entrance of Jing'an Hotel. But when he saw that there were only 6 people getting off the bus, his expression darkened. What happened? After everyone is settled. Zhao Yulong brought Yulin into the room with a serious look on his face. Originally, Molly also wanted to come over and gossip. But Zhao Yulong couldn't help Emmoli's mischief this time, scolded her, and even used Emmo Rendi's name. "Xiao Li, your grandpa said that if you continue to disobey, you will be spanked when you go back." As soon as she heard the word spanking, Molly's expression changed slightly, and in the end she could only go back to her room with a pout on her lips. Click, lock the door. Lost his temper. Zhao Yulong was also one of his own, and he was also an apostle. Yulin did not hide anything, and told everything that happened in the no man's land. Of course, Yulin appropriately modified her skills and abilities. After all, no apostle would speak out about his skills and enhancements without reservation. This is the greatest secret of every apostle. Zhao Yulong also expressed his understanding and did not ask further questions. "It's actually those crazy people." Zhao Yulong frowned and fell into deep thought. The Inca Holy Empire is an ancient country. It is a huge country located on the American continent. The history of the Inca Holy Empire seems to have begun with the sinking of a ship. In the 15th century, a colonial ship discovered the American continent. There was a navigator named Christopher Columbus on that colonial ship. The ship had the most advanced guns and cannons at the time. It should have been a joyous colonization operation, but what makes history dramatic is that when Columbus set foot on the American continent and was about to start colonizing the local indigenous people, a local indigenous people actually used a spear to kill the colonial ship. Sunk. Then, there is no more. The native who sank the colonial ship with a spear was regarded as the Inca god by the local residents. Columbus failed to colonize, but instead became a slave of the local indigenous people, and then peacefully spread civilization on the American continent. And this group of indigenous people and Columbus gradually evolved into the Inca Holy Empire today after several centuries of development. This is a country that believes in gods. The country's top leader also calls himself the nth generation Inca god in the name of God. This is a mysterious country closed to the outside world. Yulin nodded. In the future, similar events occurred. But Yulin didn't expect that this incident would happen in advance. Could this be the legendary butterfly effect? But no matter how the butterfly flaps its wings, there are always traces to follow. Yulin was just an ordinary person. No matter how high his spiritual attributes were, he could not figure out how his wings could flutter to the other side of the Pacific Ocean and make the madmen of the Inca Holy Empire notice Mali's existence in advance. Could it be? A ridiculous idea suddenly popped into Yulin's mind. But soon he felt that it was unlikely. Not scientific. If it's really those lunatics who are causing trouble, then this will be a bit troublesome. Zhao Yulong pondered for a while and patted Yulin's shoulder, feeling a little scared. If Yulin had not followed him on this trip, the field team would not have been able to compete with the apostles who had endless tricks. You won't care about this matter for the time being. Your next trial should be almost here. During this period, you can rest peacefully. The special team will not give you anything until you survive the trial. What long-winded arrangements are there? Zhao Yulong is also very considerate. Where's Mali? Yulin asked. Zhao Yulong chuckled and glanced at Yulin strangely. There are a few words that I don't know whether to say or not. Then don't talk about it. Yulin could almost guess what the wretched uncle wanted to say, so he immediately cut off the topic. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 102. Okay, Zhao Yulong would not ask for trouble. He stood up and smiled. In short, that girl probably won't return to Qingcheng in a short time. If the team leader knows about this, he will definitely not. You can let that girl go out casually. But you can't stay in this small place for too long, right? Yulin smiled slightly and didn't explain much. I have my plan. If anything happens, I will contact you directly through us. Also, the Xiao family has already taken care of the matter and won't leave any trouble, so you don't have to worry. Suddenly, in the middle of speaking, Zhao Yulong slapped his head and seemed to remember something. Bah, I'm worried about what you did. You killed the Xiao family from top to bottom. You kid can do it? Yulin glanced at Zhao Yulong silently, not knowing what he meant by his words. So there was no answer. By the way, I mean just in case, if you accidentally find any information about the name Evangelical Society, tell me as soon as possible. After saying that, Zhao Yulong stepped on his flip-flops and hummed a little tune. Not sure if it was a demonstration, he walked up to the ceiling, then walked down again, making a big circle before walking out of the room. After Zhao Yulong left, Yulin secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Even though Zhao Yulong looks wretched, in fact, he is extremely clever. There are some secrets that Yulin doesn't want to expose yet. He has his own intentions and plans. In other words, is Mali going back to the capital? Yulin thought for a moment, then took out her phone and edited a text. A long paragraph. Yulin carefully edited the information, and then read it 15 times from beginning to end. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he went straight to the door of Molly's room and knocked on the door. What are you doing here? Molly opened the door, her face covered with a dark, strange foreign substance. Yulin took a look and saw that it was specialty ghost oil. Yulin hesitated for a few seconds, and finally decided not to tell the origin of ghost oil. She could only shrug helplessly and change her explanation. There's no need to use this stuff often. Its effect lasts longer than you think. And if you run out of it, I probably won't have a chance to find a second bottle for you. Molly was stunned when she heard this. Then she lowered her head and muttered something. Well, it's nothing. Molly rolled her eyes, wondering what she was thinking. Then she didn't dwell on the topic of facial masks and directly asked Yilin why she knocked on the door. I found some research topics for you. Research subject matter. Molly looked at Yilin strangely and looked at her from head to toe. You can still do this. It has to do with the future. Molly was startled and immediately understood what Yilin meant, and she didn't shirk. Send it to me. Yilin sent the text message she had already edited in front of Molly. Molly took out her phone and looked at it, and her jaw almost dropped. How the hell are you telling me how many are there? How many? How many? Are you taught math by a physical education teacher? And these are all messy things. Methods that can cure optic atrophy. Mass-produced equipment that can withstand the severe cold of -20 degrees. Mass-produced equipment that can withstand high temperatures. Low-flying tactical armor. What the hell? What is this? Equipment that can withstand strong acid. And this, lightweight firearm that can penetrate alloy plates? It is 10 times more effective than armor-piercing bullets? Are you kidding me? Wait, shit, a mobile steel fortress to resist tsunamis. Molly read it one by one, and every time she read it, she couldn't help but shout hum. After finally reading it patiently, Molly showed an okay seller expression and glared. If I hadn't been familiar with you, I would have thought you were joking about this girl. Yilin looked calm and shook her head. I know this is difficult. See if it is possible, and I will try my best to help you. Help? How can you help? With your mouth. Molly looked contemptuous. Yilin chuckled. Don't forget the origin of the mask on your face. Molly was startled. But I also understood what Yilin meant. Okay. Molly put away her phone helplessly and asked with a bit of curiosity, I'm very curious. The list you made, except for the spaceships, feels like it's about to invade. You don't know how to engage in alien battlefields on other planets, right? Almost. Yilin didn't explain much, and left Molly's room after a few simple instructions. Molly looked at the relocked door and couldn't help but grit her teeth. Dead soul. But when she couldn't help but look for the list again and pondered it carefully, she found Yilin's request a bit strange. The scientific research content on this list cannot be completed by one person. There are so many majors and disciplines involved. The scope is too broad. Even Molly couldn't make all the equipment requested by Yilin in a short period of time. All I can say is do your best. Looks like we need to find someone for help. Molly saw that the time was almost up and was about to go to the bathroom to wash off the mask on her face. Suddenly, Molly remembered something. I forgot to discuss the price with that Hundan. Yilin originally wanted to go home directly. In that rented house. Unexpectedly, just halfway through, the phone rang like a reminder. Yilin took a look and saw that it was the old detective. Su Xiong. What does he want from me? Yilin was a little puzzled, but she still answered the phone. You finally answered the phone. For some reason, Yilin always felt that the old detective's tone gave him a sense of relief. What's wrong? You. Su Xiong seemed to be thinking about his words on the other end of the phone. After hesitating for a long time, he finally asked what he wanted to ask. Do you know someone named Pangenji? Oh, that's the one, Pangenji, patient number 9527. Ching Cheng. Police station. Su Xiong walked out of the door in person to greet Yiren. Ouch. Mr. Yi, I didn't expect to trouble you so much, and the plum blossoms will shine, the plum blossoms will shine. Su Xiong vaguely guessed that Yilin's identity was unusual, so his expression was very polite, without the previous feeling of being hung up. You'd better just call me by my name. Then I won't be polite. Lao Su, Xiaolin, this is what happened. He really became rude in an instant. It took about 10 minutes for Su Xiong to explain the cause and effect. It turns out that Pan Zhenji hid somewhere after that trial and was never found by Su Xiong and others. Of the 3 mentally ill people who escaped from the closed city, the other 2 have been captured. The remaining Pan Zhenji has been missing. Originally, Su Xiong and others were ready to give up searching for this guy. After all, as long as there was no trouble, he would be left alone. Unexpectedly, just a few days ago, Pan Zhenji rushed into the mall and made another round of trouble, not knowing whether he was hungry or not. And broke a lot of things. In the end, after Gu Xinan recovered from his foot injury, he went out in person to catch Pan Zhenji. Originally, after catching Pan Zhenji, he was to be escorted back to Fengcheng and handed over to professionals for handling. But Su Xiong did not expect that after Pan Zhenji was temporarily detained, he would talk nonsense all day long and call out Yilin's name from time to time. Only then did Su Xiong think that Yilin was another type of professional in a sense. After careful consideration, Su Xiong decided to contact Yilin and ask him to see if he knew this mentally abnormal person named Pan Zhenji. However, what made Su Xiong anxious was that at this critical moment, Yilin's phone call could not be reached. The constant prompts of not within the LAN made Su Xiong very passive. After the Xiao family incident was inexplicably closed, Gu Xinan didn't know what was wrong. As soon as Su Xiong mentioned the name Yilin, Gu Xinan's temper became extremely irritable. She even ran back to the police station to punch sandbags in the middle of the night. Su Xiong was puzzled. In the end, this put Su Xiong in a dilemma. It was neither good for Pan Zhenji to send him away nor for him to stay. While listening to Su Xiong's complaints, Yilin silently followed Su Xiong towards the detention room. During the trial in Gewu Mountain, Yilin also made an agreement with another Pan Zhenji, that is, Pan Xiaozheng. Because of the No Man's Land investigation operation, Yilin almost forgot about it. After all, Pan Xiaozheng helped Yilin a lot during the Gewu Mountain trial. This favor must be returned. 10 minutes later. After Gui Wuxian said goodbye, Yilin finally met Pan Zhenji. Pan Zhenji was still wearing his dirty white coat, squatting on the table in the detention room and giggling. "Yo! Boy!" Pan Zhenji smiled and greeted Yilin. Yilin thought of an attempt as early as the road. Yilin looked at Pan Zhenji, who kept giggling. After thinking about it, he took out a small bottle from the storage space. This is clearly a cerebral palsy film developed by Molly as a prank. N-046. When I was at the top of Onikawa Mountain, there seemed to be a strange energy permeating there. It made Yilin feel like she was being subdued. In technical terms, his spiritual attributes have been suppressed. But in that weird environment, another Pan Zhenji, Pan Xiaozheng, woke up. So Yilin guessed that Pan Zhenji and Pan Xiaozheng were 2 completely independent personalities. After Pan Zhenji is knocked unconscious, another personality, Pan Xiaozheng, will take control of the body. Eat candy. Yilin smiled and held an N-046, trying to stuff it into Pan Zhenji's mouth. Pan Zhenji's expression instantly turned ruthless. "Humph, the honest will not be punished. No, I beg you to eat." Pan Zhenji hesitated for a moment, then opened his mouth and bit it, complaining while biting, "Since you sincerely begged me, I will mercifully eat your candy." Before I could say the last few words clearly, I closed my eyes. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Pan Zhenji opened his eyes again. After leaving the police station, Yilin took Pan Xiaozheng home. "You still have half an hour." Yilin looked at the time. Pan Xiaozheng's expression changed slightly. "Borrow some clothes." Pan Xiaozheng rushed into the bathroom and washed his stinking body before the effects of the medicine wore off. "It's finally a lot more refreshing. Ah, comfortable." Pan Xiaozheng walked out wearing a clean shirt. "By the way, how much of that medicine do you still have? Can you give me more? Aren't you afraid of developing drug resistance?" Better than staying in dash. Pan Xiaozhen was about to say something, but in an instant, another silly smile appeared on his face. Yo! Boy! Yes, the medicine has worn off. Go to sleep peacefully. Yulin glanced at Pan Zhenji silently and turned on the TV screen. Pan Zhenji was not hungry now, so he didn't mess around. He squatted on the sofa and watched TV obediently. In fact, it's not that difficult. Yulin secretly breathed a sigh of relief, having solved a problem for the time being. The following days were uneventful. Yulin continued to hide in the room, studying more ways to unlock telekinesis. Although many new applications have been developed, of course, to put it bluntly, it is just an old bottle in a new bottle, just a slight improvement on the previous experience. However, the scope and power of telekinesis seems to have made little progress. It should still be limited by spiritual attributes. Yulin quickly came to a conclusion. Didn't force too much. The improvement of mental attributes depends on the development of the brain. Only by continuing to strengthen the spiritual attributes can we achieve more breakthrough progress. However, even though Yulin knew that there was not much progress, she did not relax. Exercise every day. Occasionally I also practice a simplified version of ancient martial arts. After all, physical fitness is also important. It cannot be left to waste. As for Pan Zhenji, Yulin gives him a cerebral palsy tablet regularly every day. Let Pan Xiaozheng's personality come out and breathe. For this, Pan Xiaozheng was still very grateful to Yulin. Finally, September 3, 2121. There was a searing pain from the death mark on Yulin's chest. Still the familiar pain. It felt like a red-hot iron was burning on my chest. Yulin was covered in cold sweat, and after a few seconds, the pain disappeared. He silently sent a message to Ling Wen, who was far away in the Yuwo County Welfare Institute, from his communication list. Asked about the situation there. After receiving Ling Wen's reply that everything is fine, Yulin finally felt relieved. He sat there silently. Adjust your mindset. A few minutes later, Yulin opened her eyes. Said softly. Enter the other world. Yulin didn't see it. After he disappeared into the room, Pan Zhenji, who was squatting on the sofa, suddenly raised his head. Laughed happily. Are you going to play again? Hee hee. Pan Zhenji also disappeared on the sofa. Familiar scene, familiar taste. Yulin's whole body was wrapped in a dazzling white light. Feet in the void. During the process of loading, Yulin silently adjusted her mentality. Every trial must be treated with caution. No one can take any chances in the trial center and think that they will survive to the end. While Yulin was waiting silently, words began to appear in front of her eyes. Huh? So fast this time. Yulin's heart was moved, but there was not much surprise. After all, he has seen a lot of all kinds of weird situations. He has encountered them all. Welcome to the city with simple folk customs. This is a city with simple folk customs. This is really a city with simple folk customs. So what? How honest is this? Zizi. Suddenly. Read the book and vote. You are all the most handsome Li Changa at night. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 103. Just when Yulin was secretly thinking about how much of a city with simple folk customs this was, it was worth mentioning it 3 times. Suddenly there was a harsh noise next to my ears. To be precise, the noise does not come from the ears. But, it comes from his brain. It's like bursts of noise, echoing deep in the brain, lasting and continuous. Warn. 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 Yulin's eyes suddenly flashed with a dazzling red light. The surrounding white light was also dyed red. Coupled with the noisy noise constantly echoing in my mind, this space is filled with a tense atmosphere. Such a strong sense of picture made Yulin's heart slightly lifted. What's going on? Yulin frowned slightly. Never encountered this kind of situation? After all, he can be considered an experienced driver. But this is the first time I have encountered this situation. Although Yulin was surprised, she did not make any move. In fact, he couldn't take any action before actually entering the other world. Can't even move a finger. Yulin's vision was obscured by a dazzling warning. Overwhelming. It would be impossible for Yulin not to pay attention to it. I have said it 3 times that this is not an important thing. But his face was confused. Unknown error found. Correcting. Correction failed. Duin. Yulin suddenly felt a loud buzzing in his head. His vision went dark. He didn't even have time to think, so he fainted. Before losing consciousness, Yulin's last subconscious reaction was, "Someone put disaster on me? Yulin? Yulin? Yulin." In a daze, Yulin seemed to hear someone calling, a name in her ear. The voice is still a bit familiar. Yulin? Yulin. He feels quite comfortable now. The head is like a pillow in a ball of cotton, floating softly like a fairy. It's like flying among the clouds, bathing in the morning sunshine, and all the 48,000 pores in the body are filled with the breath of youth. Ah! This comfortable feeling made him not want to open his eyes. Yulin. Is my name? Yes, it's me. It's me. My name is Yulin. Yulin. Can you please stop making noise? Stop fighting? Can you just shut up? Yulin opened her eyes unwillingly. The moment he opened his eyes, the surrounding light stung his eyes instantly, making him want to reach out his hand to cover the light in front of him. But when Yulin wanted to make a move, she found that her hands and feet were tied tightly, making a clanging sound, and she could not move at all. Yulin. You wake up. The vision gradually became clearer, and Yulin's pupils gradually adapted to the light in front of her. In front of him, there was a person. Behind the figure is a pure white ceiling. Only then did Yulin realize that he was lying upright. The man in front of him was lying in front of him, his face full of concern. You. It's a woman. Woman, what is it? Correct. Either a man or a woman. Yulin's mind filtered through pieces of information as if asking and answering questions. He was obviously thinking, but it seemed like there was another voice of his own answering the questions that emerged in his heart. Wait until your eyes adjust to the light in front of you. Yulin's eyes opened a little wider. But he still couldn't see the woman's face clearly. It's not because of poor eyesight. It's not because the light is too bright. But from Yulin's perspective, the view was blocked by 2 piles of full clothes, which also blocked the woman's face. He originally wanted to subconsciously reach out and push away the 2 piles of clothes so that his view would be brighter. Subconsciously he felt something was wrong. But his limbs were tightly tied, preventing him from making any movements. At this time, another slightly familiar voice, as thin as a mosquito, yet as gentle as water, rang out on the other side. Sister Molly, that is almost pressing on Yulin's face. Acridine. Then Yulin heard an exclamation, and the 2 piles of clothes were finally farther away. Fortunately it didn't hit my face. Yulin breathed a sigh of relief quietly. This voice. Yulin frowned. A little bit of messy fragments flashed before her eyes, but when Yulin wanted to capture the fragmented pictures, she felt a faint tingling between her eyebrows, making it difficult to concentrate. Dr. Jack, how is he? Not too optimistic. He suffers from a very serious delusional disorder, and what he dreams about is that he has abilities that ordinary people cannot have, and he also imagines that he can enter a world that others cannot enter. Oh, that's right. I almost forgot. All right, let's go out and talk. An old voice said slowly. But later, Dr. Jack suddenly realized that it seemed inappropriate to discuss the condition in front of Yilin, so he took the two women out. Yilin tried hard to raise her head. But he found that his whole head was dizzy, and his limbs seemed to be filled with lead, extremely heavy. Have you slept for too long? Yilin thought subconsciously. Call. I don't know how much time passed. What seemed like a minute seemed like hours. Yilin took a deep breath. Finally, the messy fragments in his mind were gradually reconstructed. Molly. And, Ling Yi. He recognized the two voices. Etc. Why are they here? Yilin frowned. He remembered himself little by little. Although his mind was in a mess, Yilin was gradually able to enter a thinking state. He is an apostle. An apostle with level LV8. He entered the other world. Logically speaking, this place should be in the middle of a trial in the other world. But why do Molly and Ling Yi appear here? There is no way they are apostles. And Molly also has some issues with her figure. In Yilin's memory, Molly's figure was never as spectacular as it is now, unscientific. It simply violates the laws of physics and biology. Is this an illusion? Yilin quickly came to a conclusion. Boom 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 boom. Yilin tried her best to break free. But there were waves of metallic sounds. Chains. He tried to raise his head, a little. Looking from this angle, Yilin found that his feet were being locked up by thick iron chains. With his strength attributes, it was impossible to break free. Apostle panel. Yilin's heart moved and she wanted to see the current situation. Apostle panel. No response. Yilin's thoughts were like a stone sinking into the sea. Yilin closed her eyes and tried to open the storage space. Mod. After trying 20 times, Yilin had no choice but to give up. He finally determined that his current state was a bit weird. Neither is the function of an apostle. Or the telekinesis he developed. There was no reaction at all. It seems that everything in the memory is like a dream, all an illusion. He suddenly felt dazed for a moment, unable to distinguish between memory and reality, which was reality and which was illusion. After all the operations were in vain, Yilin simply lay quietly on the bed, waiting for what was about to happen next. The beginning of this trial was indeed full of weirdness. However, it is still within the acceptable range. For now, Yilin has no other option but to wait. One of the weirdest things to him was why Molly and Ling Yi in the real world appeared in the other world. I don't know how much time passed. Yilin wasn't sure if his current sense of time was deviated. But after he could think normally, he counted silently for a full 370 seconds. 5, a little over 6 minutes. Molly and Ling Yi walked in again. Behind them, followed Dr. Jack. The man known as Dr. Jack moved his head closer. His hair is gray, his face is thin, his eyes are squinted, and his face is kind. He used a flashlight to check both sides of Yilin's pupils. The pupil diameter is 3 mm, and the light reflex is sensitive. Well, it seems that the sedative drug has worn off. Dr. Jack smiled slightly and put away the flashlight. Yilin, do you feel uncomfortable now? Yilin rattled the shackles on her hands and feet, and said with a calm expression, I feel uncomfortable being tied up. Don't worry, we're just doing this for your own good. So lock me up. At this moment, Yilin suddenly felt that her hand was grasped by a soft and gentle hand. One on each side. Both hands were clenched. It's Ling Yi and Molly. Yilin, don't be like this, the doctor said you are emotionally unstable and have some kind of masochistic tendencies, so this is for your own good. When you recover, Sister Yi and I will take you home. Ling leaned forward reluctantly. The beautiful eyebrows frowned slightly. Those quiet eyes were filled with concern, and she gently stroked Yi Lin's face with her other hand. Rin, you have lost a lot of weight. Sister Molly and I feel sorry for you, but for your own good, you must take good treatment here, until you are well. Etc. Yi Lin was shocked. He looked into Ling Yi's eyes. Looking at her, he was extremely familiar with everything about the Ling Yi in front of him. Just like in memory. Only those eyes. There is spirit and agility, even in silence, Yi Lin can read the full emotion from those eyes. But that's not the point. Can you see my face? Ling Yi chuckled, what are you talking about? If I can't see you, who can? You are not. Okay, Dr. Jack said you need to take a good rest. Molly and I will leave first and come back to see you tomorrow. While talking, Ling Yi and Molly let go of their hands, walked to the corner with Dr. Jack in a low voice, whispered for a few minutes, and then left the room. After Molly and Ling Yi left, Dr. Jack was playing with the equipment, making a series of metal clanking noises. Because Dr. Jack was behind Yi Lin's head, Yi Lin didn't know what Dr. Jack was playing with. There was silence for another 10 minutes. Yi Lin was still thinking about certain issues in her mind. Xiaoi, who has been cured of optic atrophy, and Meng Meng, who has been cured of what is going on? Except for the 2 points mentioned above, their movements, expressions, and even their tone of voice are exactly the same as in their memories. Memory. After fiddling with it for 10 minutes, Dr. Jack put on gloves and pushed an instrument to Yi Lin's head. The instrument was in the shape of a helmet. After covering Yi Lin's head, the inside of the helmet emitted a suspiciously colorful light. This is urine, relax, this is therapy, today's therapy. I'm not sick, let me out. I know you're not sick. Dr. Jack's tone was still calm and unhurried, as if it contained some kind of strange magic power, making people sound very close and yet far away. Relax, Yi Lin, it's not a disease, it's just a simple and pleasant little treatment. After the treatment, you will find that the world will be different. Yi Lin suddenly had an ominous premonition. What the hell is going on with this trial? Unable to use Apostle's abilities. All actions were constrained from the beginning. There was also the appearance of Molly and Ling Yi. This kind of hellish start is unheard of. But with the colorful lights flashing in the helmet in front of her and Dr. Jack's voice echoing in her ears, Yi Lin felt that her eyelids were getting heavier and heavier. Boom. Suddenly. There was a loud bang. The colorful light in front of his eyes suddenly went out. No. It wasn't just the colorful lights that went out, but the lights in the entire room. The bright room suddenly fell into complete darkness. Dr. Jack cursed in a low voice, damn it! Did the circuit trip? Yi Lin suddenly woke up. When the colorful light went out, Yi Lin instantly felt that her thinking was a little clearer. Dr. Jack cursed fiercely and groped for something in the dark. Boom. There was a muffled sound. It sounded like a person falling heavily to the ground. There was also the sound of some instruments and metal utensils being knocked over. Click click click. Suddenly, there were several strange movements from Yi Lin's hands and feet. The shackles are opened. Although Yi Lin still didn't understand what all this was about, the moment the shackles were opened, Yi Lin rolled over from the single bed. Boom. She didn't know if it was because she had been lying in bed for too long, but Yi Lin felt that her hands and feet were numb, and her joints seemed to be rusty. When her limbs moved, they even made a snapping sound. But, that's not important. The important thing is, he is free. In the dark, Dr. Jack seemed to hear something strange coming from the bed. He quickly struggled to get up and comforted softly, Yi Lin, don't be nervous, it just tripped and the power will be turned on again soon. It doesn't matter, as long as the power is turned on, we can continue treatment. Follow me like a shadow. No response. Yulin subconsciously used skills, but then remembered that he couldn't use any ability at all. He could only follow the direction of Dr. Jack's voice, carefully touch around, and get close to Dr. Jack's back. About 10 seconds later, Yulin's eyes gradually adapted to the darkness, and she could faintly distinguish a particularly bright figure in the darkness. That's a white coat. However, Yulin did not rush forward immediately. Instead, she tried her best to make no noise and slowly moved in the darkness. Luckily, the guy didn't have any shoes on himself. Walking barefoot on the smooth ground made no sound. Soon, it took another 32 seconds for Yulin to stick to the wall. Dr. Jack was still groping in the darkness, and he didn't even notice Yulin, who was almost pressed against the wall. He kept saying some words in his mouth, trying to calm Yulin's mood. Suddenly, the lights on the ceiling suddenly turned on. It's now. The moment the lights suddenly turned on, the dazzling light entered Yulin's eyes, making Yulin suddenly feel dizzy. But Yulin was already stuck in the corner, and Dr. Jack was facing away from Yulin. The sudden light turned on, making Jack feel confused for a moment. Not far away, there was a tray of overturned metal surgical instruments. Yulin directly picked up a curved surgical forceps, silently came behind Dr. Jack, and pressed firmly against Jack's carotid artery. Although he could not use the Apostle's abilities or use any skills, Yulin had long been accustomed to walking in the dark and sneaking silently. Even without the assistance of skills, Yulin subconsciously used the smallest steps, and successfully get behind Dr. Jack before he notices. Do not move. Dr. Jack, whose neck was locked by Yulin and whose carotid artery was pressed with a cold instrument, froze, but slowly raised his hands to indicate that there was nothing in his hands and he did not dare to make any other movements. Yulin, if you have something to say, trust me, I am your attending doctor. Jack, do you still remember that we had a pleasant time together? Shut up. Yulin's eyes were cold, and the hand holding the surgical curved forceps was a little harder. The sharp curved pliers pressed deeply into the skin, as if you applied more force, a hole would be poked there, and blood would spurt out. Now, I ask and you answer. If you understand, you nod. If you don't understand, I will poke you. Well, without hesitation. Dr. Jack was silent for a moment, not daring to say anything, and nodded slowly. Where is this hospital? Who are you? Dr. Jack. The surgical curved forceps suddenly pressed a few millimeters deeper. Jack trembled. Seeing that Yulin was not satisfied with the answer, she answered again, Jack Kretz. Who I am. Yulin. Jack's tone was calmer. Why am I here? Yulin tried her best to extract the information she wanted from Jack. Yulin, relax, you are treating a disease. In fact, we can sit down and have a good talk. Yulin smiled coldly. Use your right hand hard. Laugh. A few drops of blood dripped onto the ground along the curve of the curved pliers. The curved forceps punctured the skin, but not very deeply. But this time, Dr. Jack was so frightened that he shut his mouth instantly and turned pale. The two fell into a stalemate and silence. Yulin was thinking. What is this? Story mode? Roleplay? Escape copy? Jack swallowed hard. Good on. Very loud. He was afraid that Yulin wouldn't be able to think about it and would stab the pliers deep into his neck. Hey Yulin, I have a proposal. Jack said suddenly. Explain. I can show you your medical records. Good. There is no harm in this proposal. Yulin decisively agreed. Maintaining the holding posture, the two slowly moved to the desk. Yulin raised his head and took a quick look. There was no monitoring equipment in this treatment room. In other words, the staff outside may have thought that the power outage was an accident and did not come in to check. We don't yet know what the background of this trial is. But it seems that it should be in a certain city or a certain hospital in a modern setting. The security system here may carry thermal weapons. If he encounters a firearm without being able to use his apostle's ability, even Yulin has no other option but to run away or die from a bullet. While Yulin was thinking and checking the surrounding environment, the two of them had moved to the computer. Dr. Jack moved as slowly as possible to avoid stimulating the thug's emotions, and slowly placed his hands on the keyboard and mouse. Looking at the style of the keyboard and mouse, they seemed to be products of the last century. For Yulin. Bang bang bang. Jack quickly typed the password on the keyboard and opened an encrypted folder. Immediately afterwards, an encrypted document was displayed in front of Yulin. Patient name, Yulin number, 9527, 18 years old, Asian of yellow race. Danger level, high. IQ level, high. Personality type, suspicious type. Patient diagnosis, 1 delusion, 2 self-perception disorder, 3 bipolar disorder, 4 false memory. 5 schizophrenia. 6. To be determined, 7. Under diagnosis. Note, this patient has severe violent tendencies in his false memory. He mistakenly believes that he has killed many people with his own hands, and has a variety of abilities that are inconsistent with common sense. His social awareness is extremely low. Treatment difficulty, maximum. Treatment status, under difficult treatment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 104. Why the hell did I become Pangenji? This was Yulin's first reaction. Am I reborn again? This was Yulin's second reaction. False memories. Cognitive impairment. Yulin read the short and confidential medical record document from beginning to end 3 times. Nothing was missed. No matter who you are, when you see your mental illness record, you will involuntarily have thoughts of doubting your life. He is not just doubting this life. At the same time, I am also doubting another life. Could it be? Everything he has experienced, the end of the world, rebirth, the Tower era, the trials of the other world, the apostles, are all the false memories mentioned in the medical records? If not, how to explain his weird start of being unable to open the apostle panel and using any skills after entering the trial? And, anyway, Ling Yi regained her sight. Molly's chest parasitic equipment has been upgraded from level A to level E. It's like correcting the flaws in Yulin's memory. Aside from the psychosis, this side is more like a perfect situation. As long as he is cured, he can. Right now. Seeing Yulin's expression of struggle, Jack used the slowest movement to slowly reach his hand under the table. Under the desk, there is a button. Just press it to call security personnel. At that time, he will be able to escape. The mental patient in front of him can also be controlled again. Next time, just increase the dose of sedative. Jack thought silently in his mind. Suddenly, a curved forceps was inserted into Jack's carotid artery. 1 plug. 1 pull. Without any hesitation. When Jack saw a spurt of blood with his own eyes, he began to feel the severe pain in his neck. Yulin stabbed Jack to death with an expressionless expression. This old doctor. As Jack's body slowly fell to the ground, Yulin quietly witnessed the passage of life. There are no wild thoughts in my heart. On the contrary, he was very calm. The blood spurting in front of her eyes actually made Yulin calm down. First of all, one thing that can be proven is that the violent tendencies stated in the medical records are wrong. Patients with violent tendencies can't control their emotions and will behave violently. But I think very clearly and I am very calm when killing people. I choose to kill him, not can't control myself and kill him. Yurin calmed down. Thinking about everything. Everything I've witnessed since waking up. Suddenly. Just after Yilin killed Dr. Jack without hesitation, the computer screen suddenly turned off. But the computer power light is still on, flashing like crazy. Obviously, the reason why the computer screen went out was not because of a power outage. Yilin's eyes were attracted. After a few seconds, the computer screen came back on, but it was completely black. Bang bang bang. On the screen, a line of text was typed out strangely. The characters are square and round. It is also a text that Yilin is familiar with. Main Mission 1, Escape. The characters only had time to display the word out before the screen flickered on and off again and changed to the screen of Yilin's mental illness record. The line of text just flashed for just 2 seconds. If Yilin's attention hadn't been drawn to it, he might have missed the line of text that flashed by. Main mission. Really? This is still a trial. But where is he? Escape. Where to escape? Why is the main quest released in this way? Yilin can't figure it out. He had the illusion that the power of the tower was limited in this space. All of Yilin's power comes from the tower. In other words, the power of the tower is limited, and he also loses all apostle abilities. Correct. Yilin closed her eyes and carefully recalled all the details of Dr. Jack's body. Hair, skin color, skin texture, clothing. Try to recreate Dr. Jack's model in your head. Image reconstruction. Soon, Yilin opened his eyes again and murmured to himself, "It seems that the attribute values have been strengthened. In other words, all I have lost is identity and ability." Because Dr. Jack died too quickly and there was no defensive equipment on his skin, Yilin could not try the breathing method, killing technique that he learned from the Aniwo mountain trial. Killing skills are strengthened by Yilin's personal learning, which can also be said to be skills. Even if there is no tower, Yilin can use it as long as he has a knife in his hand and the opponent has armor. For now, just think of this as a weird trial scene. Yilin silently searched Dr. Jack's body. In addition to some useless personal items, Yilin only found an ID card. The ID card is embedded with a chip that appears to unlock the electronic lock. Other than that, there's nothing else useful. It's a pity that this white coat is stained with blood. Otherwise, I could try to sneak out wearing this white coat. If this was a normal hospital, Yilin's idea might indeed be successfully implemented. After all, in such a large hospital, not every doctor can be familiar with him. There are intern doctors, training doctors, new doctors, and so on. If asked, just find any excuse and it might fool you. It's not that difficult. But the white coat was stained with blood, so the plan was stillborn. The first thing to do is to escape. Yilin decided to follow the idea of Main Mission 1 that had not been released in time. Moreover, according to Yilin's experience in memory, if there are numbers after the main task, it means that this is not the only main task, but a segmented main task. At least 3. Yilin silently put away Jack's ID card. The treatment room he was in was bright and advanced, surrounded by white walls that were so smooth they could even be used as mirrors. Jack's blood gradually spread underneath Jack's body. Jack's pupils had long been dilated, and he was clearly dead. No chaos value. Yilin noticed another suspicious point. He began to doubt more and more whether he was actually on trial. If not, where is he now? I don't know if it was because of the sedatives injected, but Yilin felt that some of her memories were blurred and she couldn't think clearly. He forgot how he came to this world. It's like it's covered. The harder I tried to think about it, the more headache I felt. Only then did Yilin notice that she was wearing a blue and white striped hospital gown with 2 lines of words on the left chest. Number 9527. Yilin. Yilin laughed dumbly and suddenly remembered the contents of the medical records. He suddenly understood why Pangenji tried his best to escape from the courtyard. The feeling of being treated as mentally ill is really uncomfortable. But that guy may not have such thoughts. After all, he is a real mental patient. It would be nice if I had a handy weapon. Yulin glanced around. I just happened to find a delicate scalpel in the silver metal plate that I picked up the curved forceps from before. The scalpel was extremely sharp. Yulin lightly scratched his fingertips, leaving a trail of blood. Hiding the scalpel on the back of her hand, Yulin swiped Jack's card and opened the electronic door lock. Have a safe trip, Dr. Jack. The electronic access control makes a sweet sound. Behind the door of the treatment room is a long and narrow corridor. Looking along the way, there are many branch roads on both sides of the corridor. Yulin walked out of the door of the treatment room. Within a few seconds, she heard commotion and footsteps coming from the end of the corridor. No, they found out. Yulin looked up and saw a conspicuous camera above the head of the corridor, facing the door of the treatment room. When Yulin walked out of the treatment room wearing patient clothes, she was directly watched by the camera. At a glance, there were densely packed cameras every few meters. Yulin simply constructed the perspective of the map in her mind and quickly came to a conclusion. There are no monitoring blind spots. Quick! Damn it! That guy actually escaped. Isn't Dr. Jack treating 9527? What's going on? Did something happen when the circuit breaker tripped just now? Quick! Go and catch him at the door of treatment room No. 2B in Area D. Yulin gradually understood what was said. Run. The main mission is to escape. Although I don't know where to escape, there is nothing wrong as long as I run to a safe place. After a brief period of activity, Yulin's limbs regained their vitality. Although the panel cannot be opened to confirm the current attributes, through a simple test, the attributes should be almost the same as before entering the trial. Around the corner, a nurse with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a hot figure suddenly appeared. As soon as she saw Yulin running towards her, she turned pale with fright and subconsciously dug into her chest. The hot nurse is wearing a low-cut outfit and where her hands go, needless to say. From that deep place, he actually took out a stun gun. Yulin's pupils shrank suddenly. A flick of the wrist. The scalpel shot out like a bullet. Before the nurse fired, the scalpel penetrated the nurse's right eye without any hindrance. When the nurse was squatting on the ground in pain with her right eye pierced, Yulin came to the nurse, pulled out the scalpel from her eye, and added another cut. Still no chaos value. Yulin subconsciously touched his forehead. The feel of the hand made Yulin slightly stunned. The surrounding movement is getting louder and louder, coming from all directions. Holy shit! Damn, Dr. Jack is dead. Phew, he killed someone again. Tap tap tap. There are footsteps all around. There are surveillance cameras all over your head. Yulin took dozens of forked paths. This hospital is like a maze, and every fork in the road corresponds to 4 roads. There seems to be no end. There is no exit either. This is not a hospital at all, but a maze. He didn't know how the other party could distinguish the ABCD area and which road from this complicated road. In Yulin's view, these corridors have no road signs or signs, and each corridor looks exactly the same. Theoretically, it is impossible to escape from here. Theoretically. Suddenly, Yulin stopped where she was. Panting. Covered in sweat. He happened to be standing at the crossroads. The scalpel in Yulin's hand was still dripping with blood. He clearly remembered that he killed 8 people along the way. 4 men and 4 women. I just got 4 pairs together. He was covered in blood. Other people's blood. From the 4 corridors in the front, back, left and right, there were countless security personnel in uniforms, running towards Yulin with murderous intent. They all had high-voltage stun guns in their hands. The kind that can make Yulin faint with one shot. Yulin frowned, He had no way out. But in fact, he didn't plan to escape again. Because, after he reconstructed the flat map he walked through in his mind, he discovered that this hospital was basically a maze. An unsolvable maze. A maze of cameras overhead. No matter where Yilin ran, it was equivalent to being under the opponent's sight. Nothing to hide from. So whether to escape or not, actually makes no difference. Security personnel came from all directions, wearing the same uniforms. I wonder if Yilin is face blind. At first glance, the faces of these 4 security personnel look similar. Can't tell you from me. Just like in an old movie The Matrix, the savior Neo is in the corridor, and the villain Agent Smith has countless clones, filling the corridor. It smells bad. Yilin touched her forehead again. It's cold to the touch there. There is a small patch of skin that is free of sweat. He lowered his head and murmured in a low voice, "It would be nice if I could see Emily and the visible Yi again at this time." Suddenly, 2 voices sounded from among the countless security guards. "Yilin. You soul. Cold." It turned out to be Ling Yi and Molly. Yilin raised his head. Directly in front of him, Molly and Ling Yi appeared there at some point, running towards Yilin with worried faces. The clothes on Molly's chest didn't seem to fit well, and they were shaking and making people dizzy. "Rin. Let's go back and have a good talk, okay? I'm sure they won't blame you." Ling Yi's face showed the same gentle smile as in her memory, and she stopped about 20 meters away from Yilin. It seemed that he didn't dare to approach, but he walked towards Yilin step by step. "Hunden. Do you know what you did?" Molly's eyes widened with anger. But Yilin also read a hint of worry in those round eyes. It seems to be mixed with some unclear meanings. As expected, Yilin suddenly placed the bloody scalpel across his neck. "Everyone, stay out of here!" he shouted loudly. Unexpectedly, the security personnel coming from all directions, as well as Ling Yi and Molly, were so frightened that they froze in place and did not dare to move. She was afraid that Yilin would get excited and poke a hole in her neck. 9527, "Don't worry, we will definitely cure you. We promise. We promise," the security personnel shouted in unison. Molly also echoed, "Hundan. Don't be impulsive. Do you know how big a mistake you have made? Your memory is wrong. What you are thinking about now are all false memories. Sister Yi and I are trying to cure the disease I almost took you all over the world to find this place, can't you just cooperate with the treatment with peace of mind?" 2 lines of clear tears fell silently from Ling Yi's eyes. Those pupils were piercingly bright. Those were eyes that Yilin had never seen before. Clear as water. As gentle as jade. Love is as thick as the sea. Simply looking at each other, for a moment, it was like traveling through time and space, eliminating the need for thousands of words. Unlike the chattering version Molly, Ling Yi didn't say much. Just cry silently. Everyone stopped moving. Including Molly and Ling Yi. "Back off!" Yilin shouted again. The scalpel pressed a few millimeters deeper into his neck. A trace of blood slid down the sharp blade. Tick-tock. Dripping on the ground. Under Yilin's threat of suicide, all security personnel slowly retreated. "Hunden, can't you talk to me if you have something to say?" There was a cry in Molly's voice. Yilin ignored Molly and Ling Yi. Instead, he raised his head and looked at each other as if they had crossed a circuit with the monitor above his head. Yilin seemed to be able to see a pair of interesting eyes in the cold camera. "Watching all this. You thought I would use suicide to ask them to let me out, didn't you?" Yilin suddenly smiled. The smile is gentle and bright. "I did doubt at first whether this was reality. Because everything here is too fake, but also too real. After I killed so many people, these people still had stun guns in their hands, not live ammunition guns. In other words, these people will not let me die no matter what. Yulin murmured. It's like he's talking to someone. There are too many flaws. But the scene is too real. Yulin would never act rashly before determining whether this place was real or illusory. Until Yulin touched the human skin on her forehead. That piece of human skin comes from the other world, Giwu Mountain. That's a weird parasitic growth equipment that Yulin still hasn't figured out yet. In other words, the piece of human skin on his forehead that cannot be removed is enough to prove Yulin's identity as an apostle. No matter how much memory can be faked, the body can't. There is also a scalpel readily available. Molly's, Ling Yi's eyes. It seems that everything is following Yulin's memory. But he is making up for the flaws and regrets in Yulin's memory. The I who can never die, what will happen once I die? Yulin smiled slightly. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Molly and Ling Yi. Molly's face was filled with shock. But Ling Yi's tears had long since stopped, replaced by a gentle smile. Sure enough, no matter in reality or in memory, you are the only one who understands me, right? Xiaoi. Oh, it's great to be able to meet you, people. And Meng Meng, those breasts of yours really don't match you, sincerely. Molly's face suddenly stiffened. The next second, Yulin suddenly exerted force. A deep poke. Yulin's last memory was fixed on Ling Yi's smile. Yulin opened her eyes again. There is water all around. Warm water. After soaking in the water, Yulin felt a warm feeling, so comfortable that people couldn't help but moan. Where is this? Yulin subconsciously wanted to speak. For a moment I didn't think that I was soaking in water. But when he wanted to speak again, he discovered that there was a tube inserted in his mouth. As Yulin breathed, oxygen was delivered from the tube, and then carbon dioxide was exhaled, bubbles popping up around her mouth. Yulin narrowed her eyes. Not sure if it was due to the liquid around her, Yulin felt her vision was a little blurry. It's like there's a layer of fog. It's like having cataracts again. Not very comfortable anyway. Yulin looked around as quickly as possible. This seems to be a room. He was submerged in a tank full of liquid. Laboratory. In this room, around Yulin, there are 4 other pods filled with liquid. The liquid looks a little turbid from a distance, with a light green tint, and the outline of a human being can be vaguely seen in the cabin. No wonder even the tower can only release the mission in that form, because everything that just happened is in my memory. But why is it this way? Soaked in the nutrient solution, Yulin's hands and feet were not restrained. He took out the blood malika from the storage space. Crumb. Ding. Bang lang. Crash. Yulin slashed through the glass. The nutrient solution in the cabin flowed out loudly, and light green liquid was everywhere. Yulin casually pulled out the endotracheal tube in her mouth and breathed in fresh air. Fortunately, this is still a low-level trial, and there will be no harsh scenes unsuitable for human survival for the time being. For example, outside of an alien planet. Yulin jumped down from the broken glass cabin. Click. Yulin's expression suddenly stiffened. It turns out. Flash to the waist. No, he is so young, how could he get up to his waist so easily? Yulin held Chi Kai's painful waist and accidentally saw her palm. In an instant, he was so shocked that he stopped all movements. That's one. Withered palms full of wrinkles. The new dungeon has started, and the author is silently digging into the trap again. Please vote. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 105. Yulin didn't move. It's not impossible. But don't dare. He jumped a little and then reached his waist, his legs numb. It seems that the lumbar intervertebral disc protruded too much and pressed on the nerve, which also pulled the egg. Just jumping around like this is not enough. If he moves a few more times, Won't he be paralyzed on the spot? First there's the memory maze, and then there's another one. Yulin subconsciously touched his forehead and frowned slightly. He lowered his head and found that he was completely naked. It's all wrinkled skin, nothing interesting to look at. Further down. Forget it, you know the basics and are consistent, just don't look at it. There was still a layer of light green viscous liquid stuck to Yulin's body. Don't know what the ingredients are. Probably the nutrient solution type. This is a secret room. There are 5 eggs in the secret room. Oh no, it's 5 nutrition and life-sustaining cabins. Of these 5 nutrition cabins, for the time being, he was the only one to break out of the egg. Yulin suddenly remembered the fleeting line of prompts on Jack's computer screen in the memory maze. Escape. Does the reminder that is too late to be conveyed to the memory refer to escaping from one's own memory and waking up from the memory maze? Yulin thought quietly for 4 seconds and overturned this guess. If the mission prompt after escape refers to his own memory maze, then when Yulin breaks the egg and escapes, the mission should have been completed. This conjecture cannot withstand scrutiny. In other words, Yulin's eyes narrowed. Boom. Crash. In the corner of the secret room, in another life-saving cabin, an old lady who was also naked and dry opened her eyes silently, and a bunch of bubbles came out of her mouth. I saw her punching the glass. No response. Another punch. Finally, he smashed the glass of the life-saving cabin, and then saw Yulin standing slimy not far away. A trace of vigilance and surprise flashed in his eyes, but without saying anything, he jumped out of the half-meter-high broken life-saving cabin. Lee jumped down. Kaka. Yulin didn't have time to remind her. The next second, the old lady was covering her waist in pain. Yulin only glanced at it and then turned away. Not out of embarrassment. Not because of love. But, it's a bit eye-catching. The old lady's expression changed slightly. She soon discovered her awkward situation. She quickly reached out and covered the top. Thinking that something seemed wrong, she covered the bottom again. After a few more seconds, she moved one hand up and down, up and down. His face seemed a little red. But unfortunately, on that wrinkled face covered with age spots, it is really difficult to tell whether it is blushing or not. A good while. The old lady finally felt less embarrassed when she saw that Yulin seemed to have no interest in her at all. After all, don't people stand there openly, without covering up? If you think about it carefully, it seems that everyone is in the same situation and no one is losing. Task. The old lady suddenly asked. Yulin chuckled and nodded. When she made a sound, Yulin also found that she was really old from the outside to the inside, and even her voice was dry, without the magnetism of the past at all. Similar. Yulin smiled and said, same. Then they. The old lady turned her head and looked at the other nutrition cabins that were still motionless, with a glint in her eyes. He lowered his head and thought about the content of this mission. The plot is now becoming clearer. 5 eggs, ah no, 5 cabins, 5 apostles. Yulin and the old lady broke out of the egg one after another. Are you waiting for others next? It seems so. Why are we like this? The old lady suddenly gritted her teeth and uttered a harsh sentence from her mouth. But then, she let out an ouch, covered her mouth, and all the wrinkles on her face turned into a lump. Toothache. I don't know, maybe it's the plot. Yulin did not express her guess. Seeing that Yulin didn't seem interested in talking more, the old lady didn't continue to exchange her thoughts with Yulin. After all, the relationship between the apostles is very complicated. In trials, there are no absolute friends and no absolute enemies. Everyone is just trying to survive. So the old lady continued to cover her key parts, and then quietly hid some more in the darkness. Although she has become older, she still has a normal sense of shame as a woman, and no one wants to stand naked in front of strangers. Yulin made no other moves to avoid inexplicably arousing the other party's hostility. It is difficult to understand creatures like women. Maybe the other person may look smiling and welcoming on the outside, but behind the scenes they are madly hateful. In the last trial, Li Chang'e almost suffered a big loss because of a woman. If Li Chang'e hadn't decided to become a scumbag in the end and shouldered everything by himself, he might have been tricked by Wen Mani so much that not even a scumbag would be left. Huh. Yulin squinted her eyes slightly. Her eyes seemed a little presbyopic, or they might have cataracts, so she couldn't see clearly. There seemed to be a cabinet on one of the walls of the secret room. Yulin walked over slowly. Avoid letting your lumbar discs bulge too far. The slower the better. After dozens of seconds, he finally moved to the wall with difficulty. Sure enough, there was a cabinet where the presbyopic eye had just noticed. The workmanship of the cabinet is quite good. The gap between the cabinet door and the wall is very thin. If it weren't for the recessed handle, no one would notice it at all. Yulin opened the cabinet and took a look. Yo! No surprises. When the old lady was covering her hands up and down, a black shadow was thrown towards her. She subconsciously stepped aside. What the hell, it reached the waist again. You! The old lady was about to get angry, when a fierce murderous intent flashed in her cloudy eyes. But the next second, the black shadow fell 1 meter in front of her. Sorry, I'm old, and don't have enough strength. Yulin's tone was calm. Only then did the old lady realize that there was a piece of clothing not far away from her. Clothing. She was surprised and moved towards the dress step by step. Picking it up and looking at it, the properties of the clothes appeared in front of my eyes. Patient uniform. Grade none. Durability 50/50. Explanation: don't think too much, this is really just a piece of clothing, it can be worn. The clothes are very new, have no peculiar smell, are covered with blue and white horizontal stripes, and the style is hard to describe. But the old lady still put it on happily. After she put on this dress, she even felt happier than any high-end clothes she could buy from a designer clothing store. Yulin also put on a patient uniform. To be honest, there's really nothing to be picky about. Moreover, Yulin also passed through the memory maze. The styles are exactly the same. Wrong. There seems to be something different. Yulin looked down and saw a line of words printed on her chest. Arkham. It doesn't matter if you don't understand bird language, Tower quickly gave the official translation. Arkham. There is also a number under Arkham. But luckily it's not 9527, it's just a random number. As for why his number in the memory maze is 9527, Yulin has already made a reasonable guess. Everything that happens in the memory maze is reading Yulin's shallow memory. But perhaps it is the defense mechanism of memory. In the psychiatric records in the memory maze, there is no mention of anything related to Tower, Apostle, etc. It's messy and illogical, that's why it has flaws. Arkham. Yulin didn't remember where this place was for a while. Maybe it's just like Guiwushan. It's a strange world. Boom. Just after Yulin and the old lady put on their clothes in their respective ways, another nutritional and life support capsule also shattered. Then, jump down. Not surprisingly. Ouch. Another flash of old waste. A look of sure enough appeared on the faces of Yulin and the old lady at the same time. The third person who came out of the life support cabin was an old man with a big belly. The eyes are a bit small. Very small. Narrowed into a crack. I don't know if it's because he's so small in the first place, or if he narrows his eyes deliberately to look serious. After looking around for a while, his eyes finally fell on Yulin and the old lady. He smiled coquettishly and covered his lower body, too, fellow Taoists. Before he could ask in detail, Yulin slowly pointed in the direction of the cabinet. Where are the clothes? Hey. Thanks. The pot-bellied man ran forward a few steps, ouched a few times, and finally managed to get his clothes before breaking his bones. The moment he touched the clothes, he seemed to see the properties of the clothes. After hesitating for a moment, he put on the clothes quietly. Boom. Another sound. As the 4 nutrition cabins were shattered, a shallow layer of light green mucus was spread in the secret chamber, just below the solace of the feet. A little slippery. Very easy to fall. Yulin even reasonably speculated that if they were not careful, even if they were apostles, they would most likely suffer a cerebral hemorrhage while being aged. Then, Pan. The 4th apostle was a tall, old woman. She raised her head and silently checked her surroundings. When she saw Yulin and the other 3 people in neat clothes, she looked down at herself again, her shriveled and sagging body. Then he walked down cautiously. The tall old woman didn't seem to mind her current state. She didn't need anyone else to explain. She had already seen the half-open cabinet door. The pot-bellied man took off his clothes and didn't close them tightly. 4. There was an awkward silence in the secret room. It's just an awkward atmosphere. None of the apostles looked embarrassed. All waiting. Anyone who can become an apostle is not a fool. Well, at least, he's not too stupid. Now everyone can see that it seems that only the gathering of the 5 apostles can start the next stage of the plot. 4 apostles, 2 men and 2 women. Relatively average. Yulin, like everyone else, looked towards the last nutritional cabin that had not yet cracked open. Etc. Maybe it's because I'm dazzled and my eyesight is not very good. Yulin inexplicably felt that the person in the nutrition cabin seemed familiar. Suddenly, the man finally opened his eyes. An inscrutable sneer curled up at the corner of his mouth. Except for Yulin, everyone else's faces were slightly moved when they saw this. Being able to wake up with such an expression is definitely unusual. The last apostle didn't know what switch he had turned on. The hatch opened slowly. The moment the cabin door opened, the light green nutrient solution in the cabin poured down like a waterfall. Hee. The apostle who appeared last gave a cold smile and used his fingers to push back his sparse and messy white hair, forming a slicked back hairstyle. Extremely cool. I saw him slowly walking down from the cabin and looking around. There seemed to be some kind of light flashing in the dark in his cold eyes. Old friends, I haven't seen you for many years. I wonder if your skills have improved. Hee, I am as lonely as snow in this world. All the old people. Yulin. Yulin suddenly felt sad. Because he discovered that the familiarity just now was really not an illusion, nor was he presbyopia. It turned out to be Pangenji. No wonder it looks familiar. Coincide. The number of apostles registered in the Tower of Death is at least 4 figures. Although the random combination is related to the apostle level. But the chance of being randomly assigned to the same trial as Pangenji again should not be high. Yulin sighed. After a brief moment of shock, he quickly calmed down. If you think about it carefully, it's not all bad. At the very least, Yulin can draw up a backup plan in case of emergencies. Pangenji's appearance shocked several other old people. They couldn't see through Pangenji's reality for a while. Yulin silently threw the patient's uniform towards Pangenji. Such behavior did not make others suspicious. Pangenji didn't know if he didn't recognize Yulin, so he didn't say as usual, "Hey, young man." At the very least, Yulin doesn't want to expose the fact that she and Pangenji know each other yet. Although Pangenji's thinking is chaotic, he can still do the instinct of putting on clothes. He got dressed quickly and smoothly. There was a snapping sound in the joints of his limbs, which even made other people's teeth ache when they heard it. Pangenji's face remained expressionless, as if the pain was not for him but for others. Within a moment, Pangenji was dressed. The pot-bellied man narrowed his eyes, smiled, and opened his mouth slightly. Just when he was about to say something, Yilin suddenly made a silencing gesture. The potbelly was slightly startled. He quickly realized something and shut his mouth. Not long after Pangenji broke the egg, to be precise, it was 3 minutes and 23 seconds later. Suddenly, on the wall where the clothes cabinet is located, a rectangular circle of light shines through. Ding! After a crisp sound, the door opened. A kind old man with a thin face, white hair, and a white coat stood outside the door. It turned out to be Jack. Dr. Jack. The doctor in charge of the mental young man Yilin. The Dr. Jack who was casually killed by Yilin in the memory maze. Yilin's pupils shrank slightly, but they soon returned to their original state. There was no change in his expression. Yilin has already analyzed the current situation. Under this old body, even if he can use skills, it is difficult to do anything much. Although the start of this copy is weird, it shouldn't be unsolvable. With this attitude, let alone this trial, even the lower level Aniwo mountain trial cannot be cut through. Because, the body is too fragile. Yilin had already confirmed through the human skin on her forehead that this trial was not a role-playing mode at all. His current aged posture is truly his own body. He is not playing a character in the plot. In other words, this old posture is very dangerous. The kind that's so dangerous that you'll die if you touch it. Although the health bar still shows 100% on the panel, it is clear to everyone that 10/10 is 100%, and 100,000/100,000 is also 100%, but the difference between these two percentages is equivalent to a C. To be on the safe side, don't move yet. Don't move. Dr. Jack smiled at the 5 lonely elderly people. Congratulations, today's treatment is over. Next, you can move freely. Free to move around. The gap between the pot-bellied eyes opened a little, and he couldn't help but repeat it. Haha, now is the happy post-treatment time, you can move around freely. After saying that, Dr. Jack happily left the place with his hands behind his back. There were only 5 lonely old people left looking at each other. What is this? Such a weird way to open it. Unheard of. Yilin, who had been silent all this time, suddenly asked the others, have you received that one? Except for Pangenji, everyone else reacted. Yilin is talking about the main mission. After escaping from the memory maze, no one forgot that this was a trial scene. As long as there is a trial, there will be a task. No matter how embarrassing a mission is, it is still a mission. If not, that would be strange. Did you get it? The old lady suddenly realized what she was doing and asked a question. Yilin did not hesitate and shook her head. I asked you just because I didn't receive it. No. She nodded slightly to Yilin, as if conveying a friendly meaning, but she didn't talk much and walked out of the door first. Then let's develop separately. I wish you good luck. The potbelly also smiled, and no one could read his inner thoughts from his eyes. After all, the eyes are too small to see the eyes. The tall woman glanced at Yilin and also chose to leave. It's so cold at high places and so lonely as snow. Pangenji still had his hands behind his back, his head raised, looking at the ceiling. Yilin didn't know what inexplicable role Pangenji played in Kos, but in this state, if Pangenji continued to toss so ungratefully, he would have a cerebral hemorrhage or hyperplegia in minutes. Thinking of this, Yilin took out NT-046 from the storage space. The technical term is cerebral palsy film. He had already taken advantage of others not paying attention and used his mental touch to explore the surrounding area quietly. A camera hidden in the dark was also discovered. However, I don't know if it is because of his aging body, or maybe because of brain atrophy due to old age, but his telekinesis has been suppressed to the extreme, and the range is only about 5 meters. This is quite uncomfortable. Fortunately, the secret room is not big. 5 meters is enough for the time being. Yulin carried the surveillance equipment on her back and put NT-046 into Pangenji's mouth. Pangenji's lonely as snow expression suddenly froze. Pangenji fell asleep. Pan Xiaozheng is here. What the hell? As soon as Pan Xiaozheng appeared, he noticed something was wrong. Yulin quickly used the communication function to send a series of private messages. Pan Xiaozheng's expression changed slightly. His first reaction was, "It's over." As soon as he mastered the body, he felt the malice from this world. Isn't this just playing with him? The mentally ill Pangenji does not know how to write the word death, but the subpersonality Pan Xiaozheng is able to write the word death in various ways. Keep in touch. The duration of the cerebral palsy film is only 1 hour. Pan Xiaozheng did not dare to waste time, dragging Chi Kai's painful waist and moved out step by step. Okay, ready. Yulin also left the secret room. There is a lighted sign hanging at the door of the secret room. The official translation is, "Treatment Room 2B. Are you really undergoing treatment? Patient uniforms. Treat. Is it still the same disease?" Yulin remembered her own medical records in the memory maze. He thought as he walked towards the door. Outside the door is a corridor. On both sides of the corridor, there are many rooms with open doors, and each room is unlocked. From time to time there were sounds coming from various rooms. When Yulin and Pangenji were whispering in the secret room, the others had disappeared. Everyone is exploring the plot in their own way. Yulin was still thinking about the half-text that appeared on Jack's computer screen in the memory maze. No one else received the mission? Or, is someone lying? Right now. Yulin takes a leisurely walk. Passing by a ward with a door ajar. A cheerful voice came from behind the door. He, who am I? It's the beginning of the month. Tsundarabai Daring asks for a monthly ticket. Please. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 106. Someone speaking means there is someone behind the door. Of course, this is nonsense. Yulin slowly raised her head. Because of cervical pain. There is a sign nailed to the door. There are words on it. Yulin carefully distinguished it for 5 seconds, until the pain in her neck became unbearable, and she finally saw the line of text clearly. Presbyopia and cervical spondylosis are really uncomfortable. Edward Nigma. The door wasn't closed tightly. Yulin thought for a few seconds, rubbed her neck, and then pushed the door open and entered. The furnishings in the room are very simple, with a bed, a low table, an LCD TV screen hanging on the wall, and the TV is turned off. Leaning in the corner was a crutch and a black umbrella. It was covered in dust and had not been used for an unknown amount of time. Stupid fan, you are cheating. Fat goose, you are talking nonsense. On the surface, I seem to be cheating, but in fact, I am seeking the truth. Who am I? You, do you believe that I will poison you? You dare. Who wouldn't dare? Try. Just try it. Ha, believe it or not, I will install a riddle code lock in your room. If you can't answer it, you won't be able to go out to eat. Humph, you think you can stump me? I heard it's filet mignon for dinner tonight. Then, you win this round. Come again. As soon as Yulin walked into the room, she saw an old man who was green from head to toe, and another short and fat old man, squatting on both sides of the low table, playing an unknown card game. The green old man wore a clean green suit and a green gentleman's hat on his head, with a proud smile on his face. Another short, fat old man was wearing slippers and had his trouser legs rolled up to reveal sparse leg hair. He gritted his teeth and had an angry expression on his face. The two old men, one green and one fat, seemed not to notice Yilin's arrival at all. The short, fat old man started the second game while cursing. "Good gay friend? It's still a lifetime kind of thing." Yulin silently made a judgment on the relationship between the two old people. Who is Edward Nigma? For a while, Yulin couldn't tell. Originally, Yulin planned to get some information. After all, he still knew nothing about the current situation. He couldn't kill Jack again. After all, this old bone and waste can't stand the torture at all. Maybe it's because I'm old and have a peaceful mind. In short, Yulin is very calm now. Seeing that the two old men playing cards didn't look down on him, Yulin didn't mind either, with a calm expression, and sat down aside. The cuckold old man glanced at Yulin for a moment. He didn't say much. The fun mini-games start again. Yulin observed silently. The rules of the poker game in front of me seem a bit strange. It can't even be called a game at all. 52 cards were spread out on the table, covering them all. Each person can look at one of the cards at will each round. When looking at cards, you can fool the other party at will, whether it is true or false. You can say this is a diamond. Or this is a 7. Or this is the ace of spades, do you believe it? If the party who was fooled guessed correctly, he or she would win. If the party who didn't believe it did not guess, it would be the next person's turn. A simple and crude little game. It can be said that there are no rules at all. They are just fooling each other to see who can fool whom. After watching several rounds, the pudgy old man lost 10 games in a row. In the end, he was so angry that he almost lifted the table and left the room step by step with his legs lame. Ah, life is as lonely as snow. The cuckold old man said this proudly. The pudgy old man has left. In this way, the cuckold is the master of this room. Edward Nigma. Yulin, who had been silent until now, suddenly shook his head. Edward suddenly looked at Yulin, confused. What do you mean when you shake your head? Means nothing. Yulin chuckled. No, you must be interesting, Yulin hit it, but instead aroused Edward's curiosity. He asked you to. Yulin raised the corner of his mouth slightly and smiled. What? Edward suddenly slapped the table and stood up. Ouchie oyoyo. A wave of pain in his back made Edward's face contort again, and he slowly sat down again. After rubbing it for a while, Edward finally glared at Yulin. Why do you say that? Huh, you mean, I'm not as good as that damn fat goose? Yulin chuckled, and instead of explaining, asked, Edward Nigma. Edward adjusted his gentleman's hat casually, with a bit of pride on his face. Remember to call me Wise Edward. Yulin slowly sat down opposite Edward. A wiser Yulin. Edward took a deep look at Yulin. Yulin's expression was calm and her eyes looked back. Awe-inspiring and fearless. Okay. Very good. Old guy, you are challenging the wise Edward once again. Edward suddenly lowered the brim of his hat and smiled coldly. Old man? It took Yulin 2 seconds to realize that the word old guy referred to herself. I guess it will be difficult to get used to it after a while. Challenge, Yulin chuckled and said, this is just a game, isn't it? Game, Edward's eyes narrowed. Old man, this is not a game. Old boy. Yulin silently highlighted the key points. After highlighting the key points, Yulin continued, without any winnings, this is just a game. Lottery. Edward was obviously stunned when he heard this, but he quickly showed a confident smile. Old guy, what lottery do you want? For dinner today. How about dash? Yulin suddenly pointed to the dusty crutch in the corner and said with a smile, My legs and feet are not very convenient, and my lumbar disc is a bit herniated. If I win, how about you lend me your crutch? Borrow. Yes, it's just borrowing, and you have to pay it back, right? Maybe we can become good friends. Edward thought about it for a moment, and it seemed that there was nothing wrong with this sentence. Anyway, I won't lose. Old guy, what if you lose? Yilin had already thought of her words, if I lose, you will be the wiser, Edward. Make a deal. Edward shuffled the cards skillfully and danced with flowers. Soon, 52 cards were neatly placed on the table. This method. Yilin nodded secretly. No wonder the pudgy old man said Edward cheated. This method of shuffling the cards is as skillful as the god of gamblers. If there is no trick in the shuffling of the cards, Yilin will not believe it to death. But it does not matter. A smile appeared on Yilin's lips. If Molly, who was familiar with Yilin, was here and saw this smile, she would know that someone was going to be unlucky again. For more details, please refer to Xiao Yang's family. How many games? 5 rounds, Edward chuckled. 5 rounds is enough. Let this ignorant old guy experience Edward's wisdom for himself. Start. Edward yelled and prepared to draw the card. Etc. Yilin suddenly stood up. Old Edward was stunned. Yilin slowly stretched out her hand and patted Edward's right shoulder twice. Edward looked over his right shoulder inexplicably. I don't quite understand what this expansion is. Take a few seconds. Yilin sat back down. Your shoulders are a little gray, let me help you brush them off. Yilin smiled friendly. Hey? Old guy, do you think that this will make the wise Edward lose his temper? In the face of wisdom, everyone is equal. It's okay, you can start. Edward glanced at Yilin suspiciously, but he didn't know whether Yilin really wanted to flatter her or was a fake flattery. But that's not important. Wise Edward will win. He has only lost to one person in his life, and the others are not worth mentioning. Coming, coming, coming. Go, go, go. He, Edward, draws cards. It was an ordinary playing card. It's really just an ordinary playing card. Edward looked into Yilin's eyes with a confident tone and said slowly, this one in my hand is the ace of spades. Do you believe it? This game actually seems to have simple rules, or even no rules at all. It's about belief or disbelief. But in fact, in theory, this is a game that fully experiences the psychological game. Use body, language, and eyes to create pressure on the other person. Believe it or not, it all depends on whether the acting is realistic enough. And, grasp the psychological changes of the other party. When the false becomes true, the true becomes false, and when the true becomes false, the false becomes even more false. This is probably how it works. Of course, everyone knows the truth, but under normal circumstances, it is indeed a bit difficult to defeat Edward. After all, who can beat the banker? Old Fat Goose knew clearly that Edward's gameplay was tricky, but he still played with Edward one after another. I don't know whether it's because they are in love with each other, or because they are lonely and want to find someone to accompany them. Yilin looked at the cards. Then he nodded without hesitation, you have the ace of spades in your hand. Edward, who was smiling broadly, was stunned for a moment. He slowly put down the card in his hand, and it turned out to be an ace of spades. How do you know? Edward swallowed back his half-sentence. This is just the first game. Yilin vs Edward, 1:0. Temporarily ahead. It doesn't matter. It's your turn. Yilin drew one randomly. Queen of Hearts. No. Yilin did not open the cards and put them back in their original positions. A small rule of this little game is that if the other party doesn't believe it, you don't have to open the card. Even if it's really Queen of Hearts, as long as the other party doesn't believe it, it means it's not. The key rule is, if the card is not turned over, it must be returned to its original position. Edward vetoed it directly without hesitation. The score remains unchanged. It's Edward's turn. Draw a card. The wise Edward drew one boldly. Block. Yilin looked at it again with an expressionless expression. No. Edward originally wanted to use a small trap like 1 in 4 probability to lure Yilin, but he didn't expect that Yilin was so cunning that she didn't take the bait. Interesting. Edward became interested. The essence of this game is that in addition to psychological games, it also tests memory. The process of drawing cards is actually also the process of reading cards. Everyone has a chance to read the cards during their turn. If the other party doesn't believe it, it must be put back in its original position. The more you watch, the clearer you will be about the entire game. This is a seesaw game. In the end, if you have a good memory, the whole game will almost become a clear card. The battle is about who has more dementia, who has less memory, and who has worse acting skills. It can be called an excellent casual game for the elderly to kill time after dinner. It's very hot in this yard. Whoever loses will have an Alzheimer's sign hung on his chest for a whole week. It can be called an ominous old age and extremely embarrassing. But in this court, wise Edward never lost. Not once. Not this time either. Next, the two of them went back and forth. I watched almost the entire card game. A full 2 minutes passed. Neither Yilin nor Edward scored again. Edward was speechless. If this continues, there will be no winner at all. If we insist on splitting, Yilin wins. After all, Edward let Yilin score 1 point just for fun at the beginning. Edward didn't dare to underestimate the little old man opposite him now. He believed that the other party's memory was not inferior to his. The deck of cards on the table is now equivalent to the open cards. Unless you play until dark and are exhausted, there will be no winner. It's a bit difficult. Edward twisted his waist, it hurt a little after sitting for a long time. Yilin silently opened the apostle panel and took a look. Suddenly he smiled, it's not an option if this continues, why don't we upgrade the game? Oh, Edward seemed to be interested after hearing this, how to upgrade? It's simple. You and I both remember this game of cards very clearly. There's no point in playing it. It's better to draw 15 cards at the same time, and then choose 5 of them to form a hand. You will be considered a winner if you guess correctly. Add in one rule, no matter yes or no, as long as you fail to guess correctly, you lose. Hiss. There is heating in the house. When Edward heard this, he couldn't help but take a breath of heat. This gameplay is really, so exciting. I like it. Hey, come on. You first. It is a virtue to be humble to the elderly. Although he is also an old man now. Yilin closed her eyes silently, saying that she was too lazy to peek. In fact, it makes no difference whether you look at it or not. Edward quickly took 15 cards from the deck and formed a hand at the bottom of the table. By the way, the deck is composed according to the classic stud rules. Edward smiled coldly and didn't intend to play anymore. Now it's time to go straight to the king. No matter who you are, you can remember what these 15 cards are. Of course, those meaningless combinations are not in line with Edward's personality, and he will definitely not use them. Yilin silently calculated in her mind. Use permutations to combine formulas. As we all know, there are 360,360 combinations of 5 cards out of 15. Even if they are not sorted, there are 3003 combinations. Next. It's the pinnacle of psychological gaming. Only by predicting the opponent's prediction can you win this damn little game. Spade flush. Edward smiled coldly. He knew that Yilin could remember that among the 15 cards he selected, 2 spades flushes could be formed. But if you think the other way around, and think the other way around again, you can still guess that someone is having a cerebral hemorrhage. Yilin opened her eyes and seized the moment. Take another look. Yes. Bang. Edward was stunned. All the cards in his hand fell down with a swipe. Those 5 cards were clearly 5 spades cards with consecutive numbers. Forget it, I lost. Edward lowered his head and said in a low voice. He didn't make the 3rd inning. In fact, he had memorized most of the cards from the beginning, when he was shuffling them. But even so, he still lost 2 games. In the last game, even though he was a bit thick-faced, he was too lazy to continue. What he didn't expect was that the old man opposite him was actually more cunning than his wise Edward. He was not lost in wisdom. But he lost to the opponent's cunning. Yilin stood up. The legs are a little sore. Moved his steps and walked behind Edward. At this moment, Edward did not see an almost transparent shadow on the roof, silently returning to Yilin's body. He, master, you are so bad. Bai Xiao joked in a voice that only Yilin could hear, and then returned to Yilin's body. Yilin took a look at the spiritual energy value that was almost consumed to only 20%, and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. In this day and age, who the hell can't cheat? Can it be just you? When Yilin patted Edward on the shoulder, she took advantage of the other person's sight and attention being diverted to quietly release the spirit body by Xiaoi and hide it in mid-air. After entering the room, he also used psychokinetic power to sense for the first time that there was no monitoring equipment in this room. He could know Edward's cards only because Bai Xiaoi provided vision. But the consumption of spiritual energy is too great. If it were delayed any longer, the secret might be exposed. Certainly. Yilin is not completely without backup options. What if I really can't put it off any longer, or if the old guy suddenly has a fit and wants to turn his head? Just hit it with disaster and it's done. Anyway, elderly people can easily get over problems such as convulsions, cerebral hemorrhage, epileptic seizures, and insufficient blood supply to the brain from time to time without any problems. In short, stable. After Yilin put Bai Xiaoi away, the declining spiritual energy value began to slowly recover. Yilin moved her sore legs. Go to the corner. The umbrella was a bit strange in shape, but Yilin didn't touch the black umbrella despite agreeing to hold the stick. If I guessed correctly, it should be something belonging to a short, fat old man. After all, they seem to have a deep relationship, and it's not surprising that their things are put together. There's no distinction between you and me anyway, right? When Yilin entered the room, she noticed the cane and umbrella in the corner. This is as conspicuous as the red hammer on flight 444 when he was preparing for the apostle trial. If this isn't weird, then it's really weird. Apostles with some experience will not miss the various props in the trial. I will also try my best to get it. Yilin directly held down the crutch. The armrest of the crutch has a unique shape and is bent into a hook, looking like a big question mark. Let's not complain about the styling first. The moment Yilin held the question mark crutch in her hand, the attributes of the crutch appeared in front of her eyes. Question mark scepter. Level epic. Durability 400/3000. Effect crime puzzle. Explanation: the exclusive equipment of the Riddler Edward Nigma. Non-owners cannot exert the true effect of the equipment. Currently owned by Edward Nigma. Note: it cannot be taken out of this world. Epic. Yilin's heart fluctuated slightly. It's actually an epic. But this is durable. It won't break after just a few hits. It really is an antique. Yilin already possesses a spirit-possessed weapon that is more precious than an epic level, as well as an unknown powerful parasitic growth equipment called resentment. When he saw the question mark scepter in his hand, he was not too happy. After all, it is obvious that this is a functional piece of equipment and may not be suitable for everyone. Isn't it useless to borrow it? Yulin already understood after reading the attributes. Even if he could borrow the question mark scepter from Edward, he would not be able to use the weapon's own effects. For knocking. Knock, knock, nothing to knock. Maybe the person was not knocked to death, and the question mark scepter get itself first. Inappropriate. Yulin felt a little regretful. There is another way to change ownership of this epic equipment. That is. Yulin turned her head and glanced at Edward's neck. Then he looked back. Think silently about possibilities and probabilities. And its impact on subsequent plots. Just when Yulin was thinking silently about the properties of the question mark scepter. No. Suddenly, Edward Nigma raised his head and shouted. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 107. Yulin slowly turned her head. The neck is slightly stiff. He was still holding the question mark scepter in his hand. Edward's scepter. Little old man Edward, what's your problem? Yulin asked. Edward flipped all the playing cards to the ground in a playful manner. Showdown. He doesn't play anymore. No 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 no. Edward lay on the ground and refused to get up. The corners of Yulin's mouth twitched slightly. What does this mean? You can't play, but why are you cheating? Although Yulin won this little game, there was an element of cheating. But didn't Edward cheat too? Games, isn't it about technology? Let's compete again. Edward lay on the ground, staring at Yulin with his eyes wide open. Compare. Yulin pondered for a moment. He weighed the question mark scepter in his hand and glanced at Edward, who was lying on the ground and refused to get up. Weighed it and looked at it again. After a few seconds, he smiled slightly and tapped the ground several times with his scepter. Haha, Edward, isn't it just a crutch? It's pretty handy to hold onto, but it's not like I won't change it, so why do you need to be so mean? You are a swindler, and your whole family is a swindler. Edward suddenly sat up, his waist crackling, and he suddenly smiled coldly. You can borrow that rag as long as you like. I, the wise Edward, have neat hands and feet, no need that crap. After a pause in his tone, a glint flashed in Edward's eyes. I, the wise Edward, just want to prove to you my wisdom. Yulin's smile widened a little. If you are really smart, why do you need to prove it? Poor old Edward, how to deal with this kind of complaints from the new era? There is nothing Fuck to say at the moment. And Yulin added seriously, and I can only borrow it for a few days. Really, I will definitely pay it back, so there is no comparison. You want that crappy thing? Edward was a little confused as to what the crutch was for. No, I'm just borrowing the pestle for a few days. I'm an honest old man. If you win, you don't have to return that broken stick. Isn't this bad? Yulin hesitated for a second, and then immediately said, okay, to what? Edward stayed for a few seconds, his face turned a little dark, but he quickly reacted. Edward stood up slowly, picked up the green gentleman's hat that fell at his feet, and put it on his head again. He patted the non-existent dust on his body and smoothed the green suit carefully. Straighten your tie. The brim of the hat is lowered. Under the brim of the hat, a pair of eyes full of wisdom were revealed. There is a faint hint of evil charm. A bad old man who leaked his evil charm. But no matter what, after Edward finished tidying up his clothes, the temperament he inadvertently revealed was something that no ordinary old man could possess. Of course, the premise is that Yulin can completely forget the scene where this guy was lying on the ground and acting recklessly. Edward bowed and took off his hat, and gave Yulin the courtesy of an aristocratic gentleman. Gentle and polite. If he wasn't an old man, he would be pretty cool. Edward smiled slightly and put on his gentleman's hat again. Forgive me for only formally introducing myself now. I, the Riddler who once filled Gotham with question marks, the embodiment of wisdom, the wise Edward Nigma. Mr. Yulin, the wisdom you display is like the waves of the splendid river, and you have my recognition. Oh, what then? Hey hey. Edward chuckled and gradually entered the state. A state that is unique to him. Who I am. Edward closed his eyes, as if recalling his past glory. I saw him speak slowly, I can fill an entire room, or a heart. Others can have me, but I cannot be shared. What am I? The Riddler? Riddle? Hidden mission? Yilin's eyes flashed. I vaguely grasped some tricks. I see. Lonely. I will accompany you from birth to death. Who am I? Yilin thought for a moment. Name. I cannot be bought, but I can be stolen at a glance. I am worthless to one person, but priceless to two people. What am I? Love. If you know me, you want to share me. If you share me, I will disappear. What am I? Secret. Yilin answered 4 of Edward's riddles correctly. Edward's expression gradually became serious. But he did not stop and continued, I can bring tears to your eyes, resurrect the dead, I will be formed in an instant and last a lifetime. What am I? Yilin lowered her head slightly. There was a moment of silence. After a few seconds, he raised his head again. His expression was calm. Memory. Who I am. Who I am. The two of them asked and answered questions. 10 riddles passed in the blink of an eye. Yilin actually answered them all without missing a beat. Old man, you cheated. Edward suddenly shouted. Yilin gave Edward a strange look. Is this considered cheating? These are old-fashioned riddles, and in Yilin's impression, they seem to have been seen in some Enlightenment electronic books when she was a child. If Yilin was before becoming an apostle, she might not remember it. But now that Yilin's mental strength has increased greatly, her memory has been horribly strengthened. Some weak memories, after a little recall and simple reasoning, these riddles are not too complicated. Furthermore, these riddles are clearly from the same template. Okay. Is it difficult to draw inferences from one example? No surprises. You're old. Yilin gently patted Edward's shoulder and comforted him. You have completed Wise Edward's challenge, and it is yours. Edward sat down slowly. A look of frustration. It seems that he is really old. It's a young person's world now. Nonsense. Etc. Edward looked up again. He glanced at Yilin. He looked left and right, but he couldn't see why this bad old man who had defeated him was younger than him. Just when the Riddler said those words, a long-awaited reminder finally appeared in front of Yilin's eyes. Side plot mission old, Edward's riddle challenge, successfully obtained ownership of the question mark scepter. The moment the task is completed, the question mark scepter in her hand that originally belonged to Edward made Yilin feel a little more intimate and connected by blood. Just a little bit. Before Yilin had time to carefully check the properties of the question mark scepter, she felt a slight vibration from the death mark on her chest. It's Pan Xiaozheng. Yilin silently turned on the communication function. There is only one brief sentence above. Come to room 1132, Area A. Area A. Among the chaotic corridors in the maze of different memories here, this building is neatly organized, and there is even a map of the entire building thoughtfully hung on the wall. Yilin closed her eyes and displayed the map in detail in her mind. It didn't take much time to locate the location Pan Xiaozheng mentioned. There. It seems to be a waste disposal room. Why is it there? Although Yilin doesn't understand. But after all, Pan Xiaozheng is a relatively normal version of Pan Zhenji. He can communicate and communicate, so he shouldn't be too screwed up. Unless, the medicine has worn off. Yilin walked as quickly as possible towards the place Pan Xiaozheng mentioned based on the map in her mind. Of course, the so-called fastest speed, is only a little faster than the speed of cherry blossoms falling. Speed 10 centimeters per second. There is no other reason than waist and leg pain. But Yulin already felt lucky. He took the mental route. Although he fell into an aging state inexplicably, he did not suffer from Alzheimer's disease, stroke sequelae and other negative states that affect the brain. Although the power of telekinesis is limited, it can still be used. Not so passive. Compared to others, the situation should have some advantages. On the way, Yulin passed by many wards. As he passed by, he also glanced at the small sign above the room. Harley Quinn. Bane. Cobot. This prefix was too long and Yulin didn't look carefully. Victor Frith. Dr. Jonathan Crane. Yulin, a little old man walking in the corridor, wearing a patient uniform, no one paid attention to him. The journey was smooth. When Yulin came to the place Pan Xiaozhen mentioned, she found that the place was deserted and deserted. 10 meters away is the waste disposal room. Yulin stopped and took a few breaths. By the way, I released my senses and looked around. Nothing unusual. Yulin frowned and walked into the waste disposal room. This is a small room of only 10 square meters, with all kinds of garbage piled on the 4 walls. There is domestic waste and medical waste, which are not strictly classified according to the type of waste. This is not environmentally friendly. Suddenly, Yulin's eyes narrowed. In the corner it seems. Presbyopia is really troublesome. Yulin shook her head helplessly, and when she got closer, she saw that there was indeed a pool of blood on the ground. The blood was dark red and had not yet dried up. Yulin carefully knelt down and touched the blood with her hand. There was a hint of warmth on the fingertips that had not yet completely cooled down. Whose blood? Yulin frowned slightly. Open the communication list and take a look. Pan Zhenji's name is still lit. It means he's not dead yet. Yulin moved her fingers and sent a private message to Pan Zhenji on the chat interface. Yulin, where are the people? Pan Zhenji, yo ho ho ho. Yulin? Pan Zhenji, he. Yulin, not dead yet? Pan Zhenji, boy. You are very ill. Yulin silently closed the chat window. It seems that Pan Zhenji is not dead. It's just, the medicine has worn off. Yulin calculated the time carefully. Although he spent some time happily playing a small game with the Riddler, it should not have been more than an hour. In other words, due to the influence of aging, the efficacy of NT-046 has been compromised. Or, has developed drug resistance. Urine. Unexpectedly, a voice sounded behind Yulin. Yulin slowly turned her head. I saw Dr. Jack standing at the door with a smile on his face, looking at him with a kind look. How will you be here? Although Dr. Jack is old, his physical fitness seems to be much tougher than Yulin's, and his actions are crisp and clear. I'm lost. Yulin chuckled. Dr. Jack didn't ask any more questions, and Yulin didn't plan to stay here. The effect of Pan Zhenji's medicine has expired, and the NT-046 is all in Pan Zhenji's storage space. It will not be possible for Pan Zhenji to return to a state where he can communicate for a while. So Yulin could only speculate in her mind about the story of that pool of blood. Yulin silently followed Dr. Jack. Not a word was spoken. Yulin's fingers trembled slightly. There were 2 bloody filaments suddenly and silently entangled there. It can cut gold, break stone, and draw blood. Follow me like a shadow. Yulin took 2 steps in quietly. Only half a meter away from Dr. Jack. His bloodshot fingers slowly moved towards Dr. Jack's neck. Getting closer. In theory, with a slight shake, a tug, the head would fall off Dr. Jack's neck. Even if Yulin strikes quickly enough and Jack dies simply enough, the fallen head might still be able to blink and bounce around for a few more seconds. 10 centimeters. 5 centimeters. 3 centimeters. Yulin's fingers and the blood on them almost touched the skin of Jack's neck. Correct. Dr. Jack suddenly turned his head. He saw Yilin walking slowly behind him, about 1 meter away from him. Do you feel uncomfortable now? Yilin smiled slightly, with a warm smile. It's nothing uncomfortable. By the way, when can I finish the treatment? Jack chuckled. Don't worry, your treatment is almost over. You will have a few more treatments. Suddenly. Boom. There was a loud bang from the end of the corridor. Ah. Almost at the same time, there was a miserable scream. Immediately afterwards, a somewhat familiar figure, accompanied by a pillar of blood, quickly passed over the heads of Jack and Yilin. Call out. Boom. Boom. Boom, boom. The figure bounced a few times at the end of the corridor, and then stopped moving in an instant. Yilin looked back expressionlessly. In an instant, my scalp felt slightly numb. He has squinty eyes and a big belly. Dead or not? Yilin didn't have time to distinguish the condition of her big belly. He turned around quickly. He, dare to steal my stick? Are you looking for death? A mature and charming voice reached Yilin's ears. Tap tap tap. I saw a tall and enchanting figure, twisting her slender waist, walking slowly from the direction where the big belly came from. The enchanting woman wore black leather boots, her fair skin looming out of the fishnet stockings, and her lower body wore crotch-length hot pants. Looking further up, her belly button was exposed on her waist, and there was a ring in her belly button. Her upper body wore a sexy t-shirt. There is a huge heart pattern printed on the t-shirt, and there is a line of ferocious letters K in the center of the heart. I don't know why, but the heart pattern and the line K look a little distorted, with the middle protruding out, making it look very three-dimensional. It turns out to be a sexy, old lady. Although the old woman seemed to be of a certain age, she seemed to be well maintained. She had exaggerated heavy makeup on her face and 2 shoulder-length double ponytails on her silver-pink hair. Harry. Why did you hit someone again? Harley. Yilin quickly retrieved the relevant information from her memory. Passed by a room while passing by. There is a name tag on it. Harley Quinn? Harley Quinn was carrying a regular metal baseball bat in her hand, which was pitted and seemed to be stained with blood. Yilin observed 3 seconds of silence for the big belly. Harley Quinn stepped on her leather boots, twisted her waist, walked up to Jack, and giggled, "Who let this ugly guy want to steal my dick? He really wants to steal it? This long night makes me how to spend it? He Dr. Jack, you know." Yilin looked away from Harley Quinn and fell on the baseball bat. A bit thick. But that doesn't matter. What's important is that he can roughly guess why Big Belly wanted to steal the metal baseball bat. Just like the question mark scepter he won from Edward, it's most likely an epic piece of equipment. Yilin was secretly grateful. Fortunately, he felt that there was something wrong with that thing being placed casually in the corner. So I chose a safer way and won the victory from Edward's hands openly. Well, relatively speaking, it's more above board. Otherwise, it will be like a big belly, triggering some kind of death flag. This facility, which looks like a nursing home, seems to have simple folk customs, but in fact it is full of crises. Memory maze. The missing Pangenji. Blood stains in the garbage room. There was also a big belly that was knocked away more than 10 meters away by a stick. Huh. Suddenly. Harley Quinn's eyes lit up when she noticed Yilin following Jack. She walked towards Yilin, looked up and down a few times, and there was actually a little more interest in her eyes. Yilin silently moved back a few centimeters. Harley Quinn suddenly stuck out her scarlet tongue, licked her lower lip painted with bright lipstick, and giggled, "Are you getting married?" Yilin was stunned. "Aha, let's forget it." Harley Quinn suddenly shook her head again. "Yilin." Harley Quinn waved to Dr. Jack and blew a kiss, then twisted her waist and stepped on her long high heels and left. He didn't even look at the pot-bellied old man whose life or death was uncertain. "Harry is a bit of a joker, don't mind," Jack explained with a smile and continued to leave with Yilin. "Joke?" Yilin quietly looked back. The two of them walked through the corridors. Finally arrived at Dr. Jack's office. Suddenly, Yilin's eyes moved slightly. "This is a bright office. The configuration is simple. It's just a desk, a bed, and a bathroom. Hey, wait. Why are there beds in the office? You can sit down wherever you like and wait a moment. I will record today's medical history for you soon." Dr. Jack picked a folder from his desk. There was a thick layer of documents sandwiched inside. Yilin hesitated for a second and decided not to let Bai Xiaoi out for the time being. After all, Jack doesn't seem to be as easy to fool as Edward. Huh. Quite suddenly, with a puzzled look on his face, Jack lowered his head and touched the pockets of his white coat, and then rummaged through his trouser pockets a few more times. "Where are my keys?" Yilin raised her hand with a calm expression. "Dr. Jack, when you came to see me just now, I saw that something fell out of you." "Damn it! Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Dr. Jack cursed in a low voice at first, then realized that he seemed to be a little out of sorts, so he smiled slightly, asked Yilin to wait where he was, and hurriedly left the room. After Dr. Jack leaves, Yilin sat quietly on the chair without making any movement. There was silence in Jack's office. It was so quiet that you could faintly hear the moans next door. The next door seems to be Harley Quinn's room. 30 seconds later, suddenly the door opened again. Jack asked behind the door with a smile, "Are you sure it's the garbage disposal room?" "That should be correct, Dr. Jack." Yilin smiled slightly. "Good." Jack finally left. Call. After seeing that Jack was finally willing to leave, Yilin slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Next, Yilin ignored the weird noise coming from next door and walked straight to the desk. This desk is clearly the same as Jack's desk in his memory maze. Even the computer on the desk is the same model. Theoretically, everything that happens in the memory maze comes from Yilin's memory. However, Dr. Jack and this table were not in Yilin's original memory. Unless, on the desk, there are 5 folders. The meaning is self-evident. Yilin was with Jack just now. Jack's average pace has already been memorized. The distance from here to the garbage room is 1 round trip. Simple calculation, and assuming that Jack will speed up, there is about 412 seconds of solid time. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Xueshi. Chapter 108. Yilin browsed through the folders as quickly as possible. Time was tight, and Yilin could not remember every line and sentence clearly in her mind, and could only browse the most critical information. The 5 folders indeed correspond to the 5 people who are apostles. Yilin, Panzhenji, Li Erpang, Zhu Yun'er, Suzayasu. Ah! Yilin was silent for a few seconds, and then an inexplicable smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. No joy or sorrow can be seen. Oh, what a wonderful fate! Yilin quickly identified those people and took their seats. Needless to say, Panzhenji. No. Li Erpang is undoubtedly the big belly that was knocked away by Harley Quinn with a stick. Zhu Yun'er, the second woman to emerge from an egg. Suzayasu, that tall old woman. Yilin browsed through the files quickly. The files contained some ordinary treatment records, and it seemed that no special drugs were used. The word treatment is only vaguely mentioned, but what exactly treatment is not reflected in the document. Rather than saying this is a treatment record, it is more appropriate to say it is Dr. Jack's diary. Etc. Yilin flipped through a few more pages. The pupils shrank suddenly. He directly omitted all the content in the middle. There are hundreds of pages of documents that can almost be called bricks. It is impossible to study them thoroughly in just over 400 seconds. When turning to the last page, Yulin held the document in her arms and remained silent for 5 seconds. It's equivalent to wasting precious 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, Yulin took a breath and threw the 5 documents aside. Time has passed 225 seconds. The computer power light flickers slightly but does not turn off completely. Yulin moved the mouse, and sure enough, the computer was in standby mode, but after moving the mouse, the prompt "Please enter the password to unlock" appeared on the computer screen. There is also a friendly "Forgot password" button below "Please enter your password." Yulin moved extremely fast, almost without pausing, racing against time. After pressing "Forgot password," a security question popped up on the screen. Who am I? Input: Jack. Wrong answer, please re-enter. Then enter, Jack Kretz. Wrong answer, please re-enter. Really? Yulin decisively chose to give up. It's not that simple. When it comes to password protection, many people set it up randomly. Just like many people set a question "Who is my wife?" The answers are varied. Maria. Azaa. Hato. Aoi. The answer is even some popular celebrities. Or the neighbor girl. Or maybe it's the female school teacher that I admire. In short, this question prompt is actually of no use. Only the owner knows the real answer. Yulin wasted another 30 seconds guessing the computer password, and there was not much time left. The sound coming from Harley Quinn's room next door hasn't stopped yet. If the guess is correct, Dr. Jack will soon be unable to find the key and will come back to check. What else can be done next? Yulin suddenly felt something in her heart. Etc. Key. What is Jack looking for the key for? Yulin suddenly reached out and pulled the drawer under the desk. Can't pull. Locked. Hee hee. Yulin smiled. It seemed that this was the key point. Thinking of this, Yulin spent 3 seconds to brainstorm the next 5 processing methods, and spent another 5 seconds to eliminate the practicality of 2 of the solutions, then directly crushed the blood malika, took out the short knife, and struck the keyhole. With one stab, the drawer's lock was broken without much effort. Opening the drawer, there was a pile of miscellaneous items inside. There are some cosmetics, lipstick. After thinking about it, I don't know if they are Harley Quinn's personal belongings. However, this is not important. Yulin's eyes narrowed and suddenly locked on a delicate small box. The box is only about the size of a palm and seems to be placed very carefully in the corner of the drawer. There is something wrong with the box. This is not based on so-called experience. It is estimated that any apostle who is not blind can see that there is something wrong with this box. Get Youth Potion Trial Type 2. Strange, where is my key? Dr. Jack had some doubts on his face. While greeting other people in the corridor, he returned to the office unhurriedly. When he opened the door and took a look, I found the office empty. Where are the people? Suddenly, old Jack's expression changed slightly. Because the voice next door suddenly became louder. Jack was shocked. That damn Harley. Yulin left Jack's office expressionlessly. He put the documents back into place as best he could. Also shut down the computer. The lock was destroyed very quickly. If Jack didn't find the key, he might not immediately check the drawer he destroyed. In addition, the sound from next door can also distract a lot. Yulin didn't expect Jack to not notice anything stolen at all. He closed his eyes. Just did a simple calculation. Taking all factors into consideration, if everything goes smoothly, it should be possible to delay the process for another 5 to 10 minutes. It's time to act. After breaking away from the memory maze, Yulin already had preliminary guesses about this trial through preliminary exploration. But it's most likely not accurate. After all, The start of this trial was extremely weird. Yulin was also a little unsure about what was going on. But the people in this nursing home seem to be simple and honest, but in fact it is a crouching tiger, hidden dragon. The Harley Quinn who knocked off the fat man with a stick is definitely not an ordinary enchanting old lady. Swish swish. Suddenly, there were messy footsteps ahead. It was accompanied by many people screaming. Soon, the caregivers, nurses, and many other doctors in white coats, as if they had been frightened, ran towards Yulin. In such a narrow corridor, even if Shadow Follower is turned on, the effect is not very good. Yulin simply stands close to the wall without wasting any spiritual energy. Furthermore, Yulin doesn't want to expose too many abilities for the time being. Because, yo, old boy. Pangenji's patient's clothes were covered with blood. He still had a messy hairstyle, although he was a bit bald, with deep dark circles under his eyes, a weathered beard, and a mysterious smile. The elderly version of Pangenji still belongs to the type where people can't distinguish reality from reality at a glance. The moment Pangenji saw Yulin, he said hello cheerfully. The running speed was quite fast, and while running, my lumbar vertebrae made a snapping sound. Yulin was curious whether Pangenji, under the control of his master's personality, even lacked the feeling of pain. That feeling of flashing waist, if it was nothing special, Yulin didn't want to try it again. It does hurt. Etc. Pangenji seemed to be holding something in his hand. Court death. Right now. The other two apostle old ladies were approaching Pangenji at a constant speed. The first person to bear the brunt was the second old lady who broke out of the egg. Zuyuner. Behind Zuyuner, the tall old lady Suzayasu followed closely, but there was no emotion on her expression. But when she saw Pangenji stop in front of Yulin, there was a faint fluctuation in his eyes. So you were with him. Zuyuner held an ancient sword in her hand. The blade was bright and exuded a chilling feeling. Yulin glanced at Pangenji. Pangenji was still holding a small box happily. The box seemed familiar. Yulin casually grabbed the box from Pangenji's hand. Pangenji did not refuse. But this action made Zuyuner's expression change slightly. Yulin opened the box in front of everyone. 5 exquisite syringes were neatly arranged inside. The translucent needle of the syringe was filled with a strange green liquid. Get Youth Potion Trial Type I*5. Youth Potion Trial Type I. Grade Ordinary. Purity 5%. Effect Stay Young Forever. Explanation: it is made from some magical natural chemicals. Due to the insufficient purification process, it seems to have some unknown side effects. Eternal Youth. These 4 simple words made Yulin feel that something was wrong. But for a while I couldn't tell. For the apostles, this actually wasn't of much use. After all, when an apostle returns from a trial, he will return to his original state. As long as you have enough points. Even if 1, 2, or 10 years has passed before returning, or if one's hands and feet are broken, as long as there is still 1 breath left, he can be restored to the original state of the trial by consuming death points. So this potion seems to be of no use to the apostles. Of course, in the real world, maybe a little bit. But in the current situation, on the contrary, it seems to be the only solution to break the situation. Hand over your stuff. As soon as she saw the 5 syringes in the box, Zuyuner's eyes lit up, and murderous intent soon appeared in her eyes. The ancient sword in her hand trembled slightly, and actually made a sweet clang. Right now, the entire peaceful building seemed to have come alive because of this commotion. Even though Yulin and others' ears were not very good, they heard commotion from all directions in the corridor. Clang. 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 It sounded like metal hitting the wall. Getting closer. Yulin thought for a moment, then took out 2 youth potions from the box and threw them towards Zuyuner and the 2 girls. Zuyuner's expression was startled, but her face changed slightly. Because she was old and her hands and feet were not very agile, she almost missed the catch. Zuyuner was about to yell, but when the properties of the youth potion appeared in front of her eyes, her furious expression instantly turned into surprise. The elixir of eternal youth. This is the key to keeping the plot going. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal hitting the wall got closer. Holy shit, damn it, ladies and gentlemen, please help me. That crazy woman is coming to kill you. Hallway corner. From the direction where the sound of metal knocking on the wall came. Li Erpang was clutching his waist, with a look of pain on his face, and rushed here as fast as possible. His nose was bruised and blood was dripping from the left nostril. When Li Erpang saw Yilin and the others, he speeded up his pace regardless of the pain in his back. When Zuyuner saw this scene, her old face turned dark instantly. How could she not guess what the old man with a big belly was thinking? It's obviously. I have to find someone to support me even if I die. Everyone is going to die together. No one can leave anyone behind. This bad old man is very bad. Behind Li Erpang, a voluptuous figure appeared from the corner of the corridor, twisting her small waist. Her charming face was filled with a kind of banter like a cat playing with a mouse. Fat baby, don't run away, let my sister give you a good massage, it's very comfortable. Harley Quinn. After saying that, Harley Quinn also gave a slightly older look, made a pistol gesture with her left hand, and smiled sweetly at Li Erpang's back. Boom. The moment I met Harley Quinn, Yilin's expression changed slightly. Others may not understand the strength of this enchanting old lady, but Yilin knows it very well. He witnessed with his own eyes that Li Erpang was knocked out with a stick. It flew more than 10 meters away. This is pretty miserable. Let me explain 2 things from the side. First, Harley Quinn is terrifyingly powerful. Second, Li Erpang has tenacious vitality. Run. Zuyuner hesitated for a moment. Judging from Harley Quinn's movements, she was neat and crisp. The reason why she didn't catch up with Erpang Li was because she seemed to be teasing Erpang Li. It was obvious that she would catch up and it would only take a matter of minutes. After all, they are all in old age now. Let alone Harley Quinn, they might not be able to outrun a dog. Side effect. Zuyuner smiled coldly and glanced at Yilin, who was smiling provocatively. What? Don't grown men dare to use the side effect. After saying that, Zuyuner directly stuck the syringe on her arm. In the blink of an eye, the green medicine in the transparent needle entered Zuyuner's body along the needle. Yilin put away her smile and stabbed Pangenji in the butt with her backhand. Pangenji frowned. I don't know if it hurts. He looked at Yilin deeply. He said slowly, injection and infusion? You should know, I don't like men. Behind Zuyuner, Suzayasu also had a calm expression and directly stuck the needle in her arm. Handsome beauties. You, wait for me. Li Erpang looked sad when he saw that several people seemed to be doing something. Yilin glanced at Li Erpang. He smiled. He kept one for himself and threw the last syringe towards Li Erpang. There was no bloody scene in which Li Erpang's hands were shaking and he couldn't catch the syringe, and then he fell to the ground and cried bitterly. After Li Erpang caught the syringe with a smooth movement, he looked overjoyed when he saw the properties, and sucked back the nosebleed with a hiss. Thank you, brother. I, Erpang Li, owe you a favor. Li Erpang looked at Yilin with a hint of sincere gratitude in his eyes. Obviously, this youth potion is a key plot prop. Without this youth potion, let alone leaving the trial alive, he probably wouldn't even be able to get out of this courtyard. Not to mention the other weird old men, just by looking at the enchanting old lady in the back who looked flushed and seemed to be in a state of excitement, One knew that all the old men and ladies in this building were not simple characters. What kind of old man is this? He is clearly Lang Mi. After Yilin threw the syringe to Fatty, she did not wait for the other's medicine to take effect before using it. Even if it has unknown side effects, Yilin knows that this must be used. After all, the relationship between the apostles is difficult to describe in just one word. If Zhu Yuner is allowed to regain her youth first, haha. Heart is under the kite. Of course, Yilin had no intention of using the youth potion trial type I she had. Oh. Not far away. Zhu Yuner made a comfortable sound after injecting the medicine. While others had no time to pay attention, Yilin quietly put the youth potion trial type I into the storage space. Prepare to take out another type 2 potion obtained in Jack's office. But just when the youth potion trial type I was turned into a card and stored in the storage space, unexpectedly, a warm reminder appeared in front of my eyes. It has been detected that there are fusionable prop cards in the storage space. Youth potion trial type I, youth potion trial type 2, the fusion result is unknown. Is it fused? Yes/no. The classic option appears again. Fusion. Yilin remained calm and pressed the button silently. Integration successful. Get youth potion trial type 2 modification. Youth potion trial type 2 modification. Grade rare. Purity to 3%. Effect stay young forever. Explanation: it is made from some magical natural chemicals. Due to the insufficient purification process, it seems to have some unknown side effects. Nothing changes except purity and grade. But what's the use? The type 2 medicine he stole from Dr. Jack's drawer has a purity of 20%. After fusing type I, the improved version of the medicine has a purity of 23%. Yilin silently crushed the card. The card instantly turned into a syringe. No one noticed that the color of the syringe in Yilin's hand was greener and more transparent. Deeply green. Yilin silently inserted the syringe into the blood vessel. In an instant, a crazy heat flow ran wildly through the body along the blood vessels in his arms. While feeling comfortable, I also felt the pain in my blood vessels as if they were burst by something. Pain and happiness. Harley Quinn didn't seem to notice that Yilin and the 5 of them each took injections for themselves. Still smiling and waving his stick, he approached. The other end of the baseball bat was crystal clear, shiny, slightly moist, and a little suspicious. At this time, Zhu Yuner was the first to receive the injection, and her body shape changed rapidly. The shriveled skin became supple again at a speed visible to the naked eye. Coming. Zhu Yuner's white hair turned black and beautiful in the blink of an eye, and grew back, reaching her waist. Oh! Zhu Yuner's mouth opened into an O shape, her face flushed, and her whole body was opisthotonous. Her front, back, and body posture quickly became plump, and the patient's hospital clothes quickly changed from baggy to tight. Change. While Li Erpang felt the changes in his body, he couldn't help but try to open his eyes wider and look at Zhu Yuner. Although Zhu Yuner's demeanor was unsightly at first, but after gradually regaining her youth, she actually looked extremely attractive. Li Erpang almost drooled with sadness. What's going on with this transformation mode like Balala little demon fairy? Yo Pangenji also shouted happily. But the tone seems a little different from the others. Yilin's thin and old body gradually grew taller. The hunchback straightened again. He is back. Suddenly. Harley Quinn's pupils shrank suddenly. She looked at the sudden changes in several people. Quite suddenly. She didn't hesitate, licked her lips, smiled coquettishly, swung the bumpy baseball bat, and slammed it on Fat Li Er's head. Grass. There was a wind in the back of Fat Li Er's head. He hadn't finished his transformation and his belly hadn't been fully erect yet, but he had regained some flexibility. After letting out a cry, he rolled on the ground and moved towards Yilin without any image. The person rolled over. Boom. Boom. Harley Quinn hit with a stick. Li Erpang's old body has also recovered to some extent, and he is indeed a flexible fat man. The baseball bat didn't hit Li Erpang, but it fell to the ground. In an instant, the surrounding walls and ground trembled horribly. Ash rustled down from the ceiling. Before Li Erpang could stand up, his eyes widened in fear. Of course, the widened eyes are still a crack on the surface. A thicker seam. The metal baseball bat actually split a crack into the ground, extending all the way to between the fat man's legs. Li Erpang's face turned pale. Harley Quinn's second hit follows. There was almost no pause. Right now. Li Erpang suddenly felt that the top of his head was shrouded in a black shadow. Like a giant iron tower, it completely blocked the light above Li Erpang's head. At the same time, a thick arm suddenly stretched out from above Li Erpang's head and firmly grabbed Harley Quinn's stick. Huh! Harley Quinn looked up. Li Erpang also raised his head. Yilin couldn't help but raise her head. Zhu Yunar also raised her head. Everyone has almost the same expression. Stunned. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 109. Yilin. Li Erpang. Zhu Yunar. Panzhenji, hey hey hey. Harley Quinn's eyes lit up, she licked her lower lip, her eyes were as charming as silk, and she suddenly seemed to be able to squeeze out water. A tall figure blocked all the light above Li Erpang's head. It was a woman with long black silky hair shawl, barefoot, the patient's gown was smashed, leaving only a torn vest and panties covering her key parts. Woman. Giant. The female giant is nearly 2 meters tall. She has a body like an iron tower. Her muscles are so strong that she seems to have no trace of fat on her body. She has a beautiful face and facial features, and she seems to be able to faintly distinguish the delicate beauty of a woman. That strong body was in sharp contrast to Li Erpang at his feet. Li Er is as fat and round as a football that can be kicked away at any time. Well, giantesses are like football players. The fat man raised his head, his neck was sore, and he stammered and asked, Brother, where are you? Suzayasu. Suzayasu seemed to have long been accustomed to other people's gazes, and her expression was not too surprising. On the contrary, the voice was sweet and as clear as a bell, which was in sharp contrast to her figure. Small. Xiaosu. Li Erpang's mentality suddenly collapsed. So tiny. This is obviously great. Walk. The muscles of Suzayasu's thick arm were swollen with veins. The hand that grabbed the baseball bat suddenly exerted force. She actually pulled Harley Quinn up from the ground with one hand and the bat, and smashed it against the wall on the left. Superior. Boom. The wall on the left suddenly shattered. Harley Quinn opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, but her face became even redder. Her enchanting figure sank into the wall, creating a big crater. Although Li Erpang had not yet adjusted his mentality, he did not hinder his escape and rolled on the spot until he reached Yilin's side. I don't know if it was because Yilin gave the youth potion to Li Erpang. When Suzayasu transformed into a muscular female King Kong and took action, the bodies of the others had already returned to their youthful and invincible peak state. Zhu Yunar glanced at Yilin and curled her lips. I'll settle the accounts with you later for what happened just now. Although he said that, there was not much hatred in his tone. I don't know if I really don't hate it, or if I hide it too deeply. Yilin chuckled and flipped his hands, a short knife appeared in his hand. But it is the most normal form. Another second. Seeing that Panzhenji seemed to be doing nothing and still looking up at Suzayasu's majestic back, Yulin took out the Xiaoshizan ancient sword from the storage space and threw it directly to Pan Zhenji. Too lazy to name it? Pan Zhenji's eyes lit up. He seemed to have been obsessed with this ancient sword since he was in Gawu Mountain. Later, when Yulin took her away, she looked unhappy. Pan Zhenji moved the scabbard to his waist, and his back suddenly straightened. He smiled coldly. Knife, what kind of knife is it? Soon he asked and answered himself, the knife that kills people. After Yulin gave Pan Zhenji the weapon, he had no time to pay attention to this guy for the time being. After all, Yulin couldn't care too much now. He was thinking about his next move. Maybe others didn't notice, but Yulin did. After he regained his youth, he took advantage of Suzayasu to block Harley Quinn and glanced at the Apostle panel. In the upper right corner of the panel, representing the buff position, in addition to a layer of bloody intent, there is also a ferocious skull. When you point your finger on it, the skull displays a countdown. 7159:40. Yulin remained calm. Didn't say much. He believed that other than Pan Zhenji, others would soon notice this inexplicable buff. To be precise, it should be debuff. Skulls have never meant anything good. This time, it should be no exception. Zhu Yunar was holding an ancient sword, with an elegant figure and nimble footwork. She was actually a practicing master. Moreover, what she practices is not the bodybuilding techniques and dragon walking steps that everyone can use to strengthen their body. It looks like a more profound ancient martial art. In the blink of an eye, Zhu Yunar and Suzayasu, one tall, one short, one strong, one thin, approached Harley Quinn in an encircling posture. In the state of old people, they can't do anything to any old man or woman in this yard, but now after being injected with the youth potion, they have returned to the peak state of the apostles. It doesn't matter who is strong and who is weak. Swish, swish, swish. Zhu Yunar was wearing a hospital gown, but she looked as if she were a fairy. Every sword strike raised a brilliant sword light. Harley Quinn, who was smashed into the wall by Suzayasu, was even more excited because of the pain. She didn't know where the enchanting old lady got the strength, but she forcefully pulled the stick out of Suzayasu's hand with a pop, and then backhanded her. Sweep the two of them hard. It seemed like an ordinary strike, but in the blink of an eye, it dispersed all the sword light that had almost sealed the corridor, and forced Suzayasu away with a clang, blocking the only sword. No matter how many sword lights there are, no matter how dazzling the sword shadows are, there is only one ancient sword after all. Harley Quinn tilted her head. The pitted baseball bat looked tattered, but it was surprisingly strong. Where the ancient sword collided with the metal baseball bat, there was not even a single scratch left on the baseball bat. I don't know how the potholes on it were caused. Zhu Yunar's expression changed. Palms are numb. The health value actually dropped a bit. This is still blocked. She thought of the scene when Suzayasu grabbed the baseball bat with her hand, and felt a little surprised in her heart. Is this an attack that can be blocked with bare hands? Zhu Yunar took a few steps back. Harley Quinn suddenly raised her head. Ignored Zhu Yunar. He looked deeply at the tall and strong Suzayasu. That body of muscles as strong as steel is very addictive. He, will you marry me? Harley Quinn suddenly said something that shocked everyone present. Unexpectedly, Suzayasu remained expressionless and unmoved. Sorry, I don't like women. I didn't like it either, but for you, I, Harley, can make an exception. Suzayasu. She didn't answer. Just suddenly hit him with a punch. Whispering with the wind. This is the answer. Humph. You don't know how good a mature woman is. Harley Quinn pouted depressedly, seeming a little unhappy. But she grinned brightly 2 seconds later. Then you, just die. He. Suddenly. Zhu Yunar's pupils narrowed. Even Suzayasu, who had a calm expression, showed a little more fluctuation, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. A scarlet blade appeared silently on the side of Harley Quinn's neck. Because the scene was so chaotic during the electric battle, no one noticed that someone was able to pass through the narrow corridor and get behind Harley Quinn. It was originally impossible. Ah! Yilin's expression was calm, and her physical condition felt like she had regained her youth again, which was quite good. At the very least, my waist is not sore, my legs are not hurting, and I can go up to the 5th floor in one breath without any effort. When everyone's attention was attracted to the tall and mighty Suzayasu, Yilin knew that this was the best opportunity to use Shadow Follower. The focus of everyone's eyes fell on Suzayasu. This is like Li Chang'e in the Dark Knight, shining dazzlingly. Furthermore, the Apocalypse module skill Following Like a Shadow has been raised to max by Yilin using the Chaos value. Presence dropped by 100%. Out of sight is the same as behind. Just like the skill description. He is the man who wants to become a shadow. Therefore, Yilin was able to activate her skills instantly in such an extreme situation, and even used Run Fast to sneak up behind Harley Quinn silently. At that moment, even Harley Quinn didn't notice Yilin's presence because Suzayasu had attracted her attention. This is a cordial greeting from a young man. Laugh. The hand rises and the knife falls. The moment she felt the pain, a trace of horror appeared on Harley Quinn's face. Blood Jasmine pulled a mark on her snow-white neck with some necklines. Blood splattered. Yilin. After Yilin cut Harley Quinn's neck open, Suzayasu's fist as big as a casserole came with a bang, and directly knocked Harley Quinn with blood spurting out of her neck. Fly and fly until the end of the corridor. This shows how powerful this punch is. My stick. Li Erpang suddenly screamed. He eagerly wanted to rush towards the place where Harley Quinn was shot away. He also seems obsessed with the metal baseball bat used by Harley Quinn. Thick, long, and practical. It seems that Li Erpang also noticed that the equipment of those old men and women was unusual. Yilin suddenly frowned. After Harley Quinn was punched away by Suzayasu, something seemed to be missing. Right now. Yilin grabbed Li Erpang, who was about to rush forward. You pulled me. He was only halfway through his words when his expression suddenly changed and he realized something was wrong around him. There was a faint fragrance of pollen in the air. Hiss. Only then did they notice that on the wall that Harley Quinn smashed, countless green vines emerged from the spider web-like cracks. Those vines grew along the wall and quietly reached the ceiling. Now the ceiling is densely covered with thorny vines. Among the vines, there are bright red and purple roses. At a speed visible to the naked eye, they grow buds and stamens, moisten, bloom, and spread. Pollen comes. This strange situation made Zuyuner, Suzayasu, and Li Erpang stunned for 2 seconds. When Yilin realized something was wrong, she immediately pulled Pangenji, who was so busy, and ran back. In the direction where Harley Quinn was punched away, elderly people slowly walked out. Some are tall, some are short and fat, some are old and strong. That old posture, but faintly exudes amazing courage. Among them, there seems to be Edward, and the fat goose playing cards with Edward. They are coming. This scene made Li Erpang unable to help but swallow his saliva. Without hesitation, Li Erpang swallowed his saliva when he saw this scene, turned around and prepared to run away. It's not worth fighting for just a second-hand stick. Oh, wait for me, brother. Zuyuner shouted, let's go. Suzayasu held her breath, shaking every step, and ran after Yilin. What's your plan? Zuyuner looked at Yilin with an indescribable feeling in her eyes. The decisive attack on Harley Quinn just now made the arrogant Zuyuner pay more attention to Yilin. And, at the beginning of this mission, ahem. Thinking of the embarrassment of breaking out of the egg, Zuyuner felt a little ashamed and annoyed. Seeing Zuyuner walking to her side in 2 steps, Yilin turned her head and looked at Zhu Yuner deeply. Yilin smiled slightly and said calmly, "Escape, what else can we do?" It's coming." Li Erpang, who was panting and running, suddenly screamed. There are countless green vines on the ceiling and walls on both sides, like evil ghosts chasing souls, growing and blooming rapidly along the walls and ceiling. Anyone who is an apostle can guess that if the pollen is inhaled into the body, there will never be any good results. I remembered. That was poison ivy. That Harley Quinn just now? It was Harley Quinn. Li Erpang shouted and ran faster. No one expected that this fat man, who seemed to weigh nearly 200 kilograms, could move so flexibly. In the blink of an eye, the fat man ran like crazy and surpassed Suzayasu and Pangenji. Pangenji was not in a hurry, and just smiled. "I am thin and would like to call you the strongest among fat people." Li Erpang. The fat brother doesn't know how serious he is. 5 people ran wildly in the corridor one after another. Yilin looked back. Somewhat inexplicable. How could this happen so easily that he became the leader of the team? But thinking about it carefully, there were countless weird vines growing behind them and chasing them. There was only one way, and they had no other choice but to run in this direction. Only. Seeing that everyone else was silently slower than him, ranging from half to one position, Yilin instantly guessed what others were thinking. Haha, few of those who can become apostles and live to this day are pure white lotuses. By the way, except Pangenji. His flower is not called white lotus, it is called tofu flower, and it is the broken kind that cannot be picked up or touched. Suddenly, Yilin, who was running at the front of the team, suddenly stopped. Zhu Yuner braked in time. He stopped and picked up the ancient sword. She focused her gaze, fearing that Yilin would find something wrong again ahead. Duan. Li Erpang didn't react for a moment and hit a high hard wall. He rubbed the sore bridge of his nose, where Harley Quinn had hit him with a stick, and before he could recover, another nosebleed slowly flowed from the impact. Suck slip. The fat man sucked it back silently. Health value silently increased by 0.2%. He looked up and realized that what he hit was not the wall at all, but Suzayasu's well-developed latissimus dorsi and trapezius muscles. And strong gluteus maximus muscles. Hard as iron. Suzayasu suddenly turned back and glanced at Fatty. Li Erpang was shocked and smiled. Unexpected, unexpected, he. It doesn't matter. Suzayasu said sweetly, with an indifferent expression. Damn, this voice doesn't match this body type at all. What kind of devilish character is this? Li Erpang wailed loudly in his heart. It should be here. Yilin stared at the wall and whispered. In fact, Yilin had already noticed something strange about this building. It was impossible to tell the difference between day and night in the corridor. Because there are no windows at all. The lighting is all provided by ceiling lights. This building didn't feel like a hospital to him, but more like a prison. Like a prison designed to prevent certain people from ever seeing the light of day. If you hadn't seen the map on the wall of the corridor, and then checked and compared it, it would be difficult to distinguish the terrain from the surrounding pattern. Fortunately, while lurking behind Harley Quinn, Yilin noticed a name written on the room next to her. Pamela Isley. Through this name and the room, Yilin successfully built a map in her mind to determine her position. Can you break through this wall? Yilin said to Suzayasu behind her. Get out of the way, let me try. The vines behind him have reached 20 meters away. Time is running out. They could even faintly smell the scent of pollen. Pollen is poisonous. Guess so. Ba bang bang. Suzayasu clenched her fists silently, making a clear sound. Li Erpang looked at the tall and majestic figure with a strange expression. Drink. Suzayasu clenched her fists and slammed her casserole-sized fists against the wall designated by Yilin. Boom. The wall was instantly penetrated. Dazzling sunlight shines through the large hole. Li Erpang was stunned. Is this even a woman? Did you grow up taking hormones? Brother Su is mighty. Walk. Yilin didn't hesitate and went straight through the hole. Then there is Zhu Yun'er. Next came Pan Zhenji. Then it was Fatty's turn. Huh. Suddenly. The fat man had just gotten halfway through, when his expression changed. Stuck, 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 stuck. Holy shit. Li Erpang suddenly burst into tears. Brother Su, if you make a hole, just make a hole, don't make the hole so delicate, okay? Fatty's size is a bit big. Just when Li Erpang was thinking about how to escape from the hole, a sharp anus pain suddenly came from the middle of the fat buttocks, from a mysterious and deep part. Boom. Suzayasu had no expression on her face. When she saw Fatty Li stuck at the entrance of the cave, with vines chasing him behind him, he didn't say anything. He just kicked him and helped Fatty Li get out of the hole. Boom. There was another shock. The wall collapsed. The entire 3-meter-high wall was completely shattered. Yilin, Zhu Yun'er, and Pan Zhenji jumped down from the hole smoothly. Sure enough, the map is correct, this is the second floor. Before Yilin landed, she quietly used her psychic power to lift herself up, but it was fine. Zhu Yun'er's landing posture was elegant and somewhat anti-gravity. Pan Zhenji landed on his face, but he quickly jumped up again without any pain or itch. After Yilin landed, a shrill scream came from behind him. The scream was so vivid that it made those who heard it sad and those who heard it shed tears. It seems to have a somewhat unclear context. Yilin looked back and saw Li Erpang's round body flying over his head like a parabola. Immediately afterwards, Suzayasu calmly jumped down from the second floor, leaving a small crater on the ground with a bang. Right now. A line of text appeared in front of everyone's eyes, including Yilin. Main Mission 1, Escape from Arkham Nursing Home, Mission completed, Reward, the number of random rewards add 1 when clearing the level. The reward is so generous. After clearing the level, the number of random rewards will be add 1, which means that as long as you can successfully survive the trial, you can draw 1 more random reward. Of course, the premise is that you can survive to the end. Otherwise, this reward is equivalent to a blank check. Or, legacy. In short, if you don't survive to the end, this reward will be just a vain reward. After receiving the mission completion prompt, Zhu Yun'er, who was not far away, couldn't help but frown slightly and whispered to herself, "When did we receive the mission?" Yilin remained silent and didn't speak. He just glanced at the gleam of snow-white color leaking out of Zhu Yun'er's loose collar. But he quickly looked away and looked back. Yilin could finally see the front of the building. The exterior wall of the building has mottled paint, but at the same time there are many traces of repairs. It can be seen that this building has gone through a certain period of time and is still strong today. The front door was completely locked, and Yilin had no intention of trying to rush in again. And above the main entrance, there is a signboard. Arkham Gerocomium. The official translation from Tower is Arkham Nursing Home. This is also where they escaped. Oddly, the sign, the word Arkham seems to be older than Gerocomium and is slightly shabby. Somewhat eccentric. Pan Zhenji smiled inexplicably at the sign. After a few people escaped, the countless vines behind them stretched out from the hole, but they did not chase them to the first floor. After a slight twist of the vines was revealed, they slowly retracted. Li Erpang got up from a distance. Face full of blood. He held his buttocks, his expression was indescribable, and he jumped towards the side. At this time, he also noticed the exquisite signboard. His brows furrowed and the corners of his mouth twitched, as if he was a little confused, but he quickly concealed that trace of doubt. Overhead, clouds were gathering. It didn't look like rain clouds, and there was no moist smell in the air before it rained. On the contrary, it looks like gray. The sky is like a piece of gray, stretching as far as the eye can see. It's like the whole world is shrouded in a gray cloud. Yulin didn't say anything and walked straight to the iron gate. Strangely, the security booth was empty. Yulin casually cut off the lock with blood jasmine and stepped out of the courtyard of the nursing home. The moment he stepped out of the courtyard of the nursing home, a line of text appeared in front of my eyes. Main mission 2. Don't forget to vote for recommendations too. You are all the most handsome Li Chang around the clock. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 110. Main mission 2, restore Gotham City to its former glory, mission reward, unknown. The sin list opens. Another list? Why do I always like to play this weird tune in the tasks I encounter recently? Note, this task is a group task. Note, this task is a group task. Note, this task is a group task. The important reminder was repeated 3 times. Yulin reads silently. When the total value of the crime list reaches 100%, the apostles still surviving in Gotham City will collectively complete the mission. Finally, the clearance evaluation will be settled based on the sin list ranking. Let your name resound throughout Gotham. Work hard to become Gotham's rising star. Yulin thought silently in her mind, and took a look at the sin list while she was free. Read as much hidden information as possible from the details. This is a good habit that Yulin has maintained for many years. In one word, stable. Sin list. Gotham's crime level 2483/1000000, 0.24%. Iron 1123, 0.11%. Zuyunar 1000, 0.1%. Pangenji 248, 0.02%. Li Erpang 112, 0.01%. Suzayasu 3, 0%. Yulin took a few glances, but after analyzing no other special information, she silently closed the sin list interface. Guilty list. Gotham City. Past glory. Why does the painting style look weird? The other 4 people also stepped out of the wall of Arkham Nursing Home. The moment they stepped out of Arkham Nursing Home, the other 4 people also received the task prompt at the same time, with different expressions. Then each of them stood stunned for a moment. They were all reading the prompt silently and didn't say much. Soon, everyone else finished reading. Jajajaja. Suddenly, Pangenji covered his face with one hand to cover the dark circles under his eyes, lifted up his messy bangs, and let out a weird laugh. Swish, swish, swish. When the others heard this, their eyes instantly fell on Pangenji. Jajajaja. Pangenji became more and more crazy. Li Erpang rubbed his face. His face was almost disfigured, and his face was almost destroyed. He couldn't help but glance at Suzayasu resentfully, but when he saw the other person's size, he instantly put away his resentment, lowered his head and said nothing. Zuyunar bit her lip and thought for a moment. Suddenly he snorted softly and said to Suzayasu, "Sister Susu, let's go." "Sister Susu? Brother Su?" the fat man complained crazily deep in his heart. But he didn't dare to say it. "I feel like if I say it, I might die." Oh no, Li Erpang suddenly felt something was wrong. Wait a minute, isn't this second mission a team mission? Team? Haha. Zuyunar sneered. After saying that, he turned around with Suzayasu and stepped onto the bridge. Left this place quickly. Arkham Nursing Home is located on a small island on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by canals. As for the gate of the nursing home, 2 bridges can be seen directly in front. At the end of the bridge, there is a faint glimpse of the bustling downtown. In the middle of the busy city, there seemed to be a tall building. The top of the building was shining, and there seemed to be a line of writing, but Yilin's eyesight was limited and he couldn't see it clearly. On the other side of the city, in a certain area, many plumes of thick smoke rose into the sky and merged into the gray clouds in the sky. Those thick smoke seemed to be the main source of air pollution in the city. After seeing Zhu Yuner and Suzayasu leaving, Yilin ignored Pan Zhenji, who was convulsing, and turned to look at Li Erpang. He took a deep look at Li Erpang. The fat man was a little frightened by Yilin's scrutinizing eyes, and he shrank his neck. What are you looking at? Yilin chuckled. It seems like you know where Gotham City is. Li Erpang's expression froze. Only then did he remember that when he saw the strangely growing vines, he had accidentally given out the nicknames of several famous Gotham villains. Tisk Li Erpang originally thought that he had foresight and was secretly happy, but he didn't expect that Yilin actually noticed what he said in a hurry. After hesitating for a moment, Li Erpang thought that the youth potion he injected came from Yilin. So he sighed, without hiding anything, and summarized the ancient story in a simple and easy-to-understand manner. To put it simply, the entire history of Gotham can be summarized in 2 sentences. Gotham City has simple folk customs. There's a lot of talent coming out of Arkham. That's probably what happened. The Riddler, Penguin, Harley Quinn, Joker, Poison Ivy, all came from Arkham Asylum, but the strange thing is that the bad guys have all aged, and the asylum has become nursing home. I don't know what the hell is going on. Li Erpang was also extremely depressed when he talked about it. There is something clearly wrong with this plot and style of painting. The bad guys get older, and then the main storyline has them become the new Gotham villains. What about Batman? Logically speaking, Batman Bruce Wayne should also be an old man, right? The Riddler? Edward Nygma. Yilin said a name. Wait, have you seen him? The fat man's eyes widened. Yes, I saw it. Yilin did not give any details. The Riddler, get out of Gotham. Among all the villains, I hate the Riddler the most. Li Erpang suddenly said angrily. Yilin. You don't know, a few years ago there was a century-old game company EB, which reset a fossil-level game Batman VR Ultimate Edition, not to mention the 230 paid DLCs. This is also the manufacturer's usual shameless operation. Already. In the game, the Riddler's puzzles are everywhere, overwhelming, as many as 1,500. If you don't find all the Riddler's puzzles, you won't be able to unlock the perfect ending. The whole game feels like I'm going to heaven and earth, competing with the Riddler in a battle of wits and courage. Out of 200 hours of gameplay, more than 130 hours were spent solving puzzles. If the Riddler doesn't get out of Gotham, who will get out of Gotham? Get out of here, fatty. Yilin. Well, although he hasn't played it, it sounds like this game company and the Riddler in the game are indeed quite outrageous. 1,500 little puzzles. More than excessive? Crazy. Although Li Erpang briefly explained the origin of Gotham City. But Yilin knew very well that this was obviously not the same thing as the Gotham Li Erpang said. First, the original Gotham villains have aged. The lunatic asylum was also turned into a nursing home. It seems so. After losing its villain, has Gotham really turned into a good city with simple folk customs? Yilin chuckled. Li Erpang rubbed his face and buttocks again. After the pain dissipated, he squinted his eyes and said with a smile, "My name is Li Erpang. Why don't we form a team for this mission? Those 2 women are obviously a little bit not to be trifled." Speaking of Zhu Yuner and Suzayasu, Li Erpang's tone seemed a little heavier. But because he couldn't see his eyes clearly, it was difficult for Yilin to tell what Li Erpang was really thinking. There are really many benefits to squinting. Yilin did not refuse and added each other as friends. After leaving Arkham Nursing Home, Dr. Jack didn't know whether he had discovered that Yilin had destroyed his drawer and lost a potion. Anyway, they lingered at the door for a while. The nursing home was eerily quiet, and no other former villains came out to chase them. "Don't you chase?" "But can't chase?" Yilin silently proposed one of the hypotheses. Awaiting future verification. The two walked across another bridge. Parted ways with Zhu Yuner and Suzayasu. Anyway, they were leading to the city. Since they didn't want to see each other, Yilin didn't bother to meet those two women. Only temporarily. Yilin raised the corner of her mouth and smiled inexplicably. Being a bad guy. This mission is quite good. The words are divided into two parts. Half an hour later, Suzayasu and Zhu Yuner came to the city. Zhu Yuner became more and more confused about what this task was about. It's close to the city center. The area is considered prosperous. There are countless criss-crossing tracks in the sky, carrying various types of vehicles moving quickly. If Li Erpang, a veteran Batman player, were here, he would definitely be surprised to say that this is Gotham City's most famous rail transportation system. It's a pity that Batman was a popular theme in the last century. Zhu Yuner and Suzayasu lacked home elements and had no relevant information about Batman in their minds. But in front of them, this was clearly a city with simple folk customs. Every pedestrian is polite and has a smile on his or her face. Birds and flowers are singing around, and there is a warm and peaceful atmosphere everywhere. But somehow, after Zhu Yuner had experienced several trials in the world, the scenery in front of her became warmer and simpler, and her heart became more and more uneasy. Something doesn't feel right. Suddenly, Zhu Yuner, who casually opened the apostle panel, was startled. Only then did she see that there was an inexplicable buff icon in the upper right corner of the panel. It was a dazzling and ferocious black skull. It was somewhat similar to the death mark on her private parts. But the difference is that the death-branded skull looks gloomy and solemn, but this skull icon has a strange smile. Looking closer, the weird smile disappeared again. It seemed to be just an illusion. When Zhu Yuner's finger gently clicked on the skull icon, a countdown appeared silently on the interface. 7124:33. Could it be? A terrible thought suddenly flashed through Zhu Yuner's mind. I don't know if anyone else has noticed. She silently glanced at Suzayasu, who looked calm, hesitated for a moment, and decided not to reveal the matter. A list of sins. Zhu Yuner's eyes flashed as she thought about the task prompts. In that case, then don't blame me. Zhu Yuner smiled coldly and told Suzayasu part of her thoughts. When Suzayasu heard this, her expression did not change at all. She was still as calm as water and nodded gently. But those two casserole-sized fists were already kneaded together. There was a snapping, bone-crunching sound. The killing is in progress. Zhu Yuner shook her palm, silver light flashed, and an ancient longsword appeared in the middle of her palm. There were people coming and going in front of me, and it was bustling. Zhu Yuner didn't hesitate, and with a movement of her body, she rushed directly into the crowd. As he raised his hands and feet, he spat out silver light. The ancient longsword was like a lawnmower, slashing out with sharp sword light. In an instant, it took away 5 lives. The streets are stained with blood. The moment she started killing people, Zhu Yuner's expression was filled with frost, and she was not moved at all by the death of these people. Ah! What happened? Zhu Yuner went on a killing spree, which indeed caused a commotion in the streets. Suzayasu kicked her foot, and the ground cracked. The nearly 2-meter-long body was like a human tank, causing a bloody storm in the crowd. Wherever Suzayasu passed, humanoid objects flew into the air one after another. Some have sunken heads. Some limbs are twisted. Some even had bloody holes punched into their chests. The scene is extremely cruel. Suzayasu and Zhu Yuner instantly turned into emotionless killing machines without any hesitation. As they began to kill mercilessly, Suzayasu and Zhu Yuner's eyes were also filled with lines of small words. Kill the good citizens of Gotham City and gain add 10 crime value. Kill the good citizens of Gotham City and gain add 10 crime value. Kill the good citizens of Gotham City and gain add 10 crime value. Only 10 sin points? While shaking the ancient sword, Zuyuner accidentally glanced at it and almost vomited blood in anger. What's the deal with this score of mosquito legs? A citizen's score is only 10 points? The total value of the sin list is a full million. In other words, this would have to kill 100,000 people? In broad daylight, under the clear sky, 100,000 people in Gotham City are actually going to be massacred? What the hell kind of mission is this? Zuyuner just made such a simple calculation, and the long sword in her hand suddenly shook, and she almost lost her grip. Sudden. Just as Zuyuner was thinking about the details of the mission in shock, she found strangely that as she continued to kill, there was no one around her. Suzayasu did the same, she stopped her fist. The humanoid tank was forced to stop crushing. Because there was suddenly no one around. All the good citizens of Gotham City actually formed a large circle, surrounding the two people in the center. Zuyuner. Suzayasu. Zuyuner felt a chill down her spine inexplicably. Not quite right. Too strange. This doesn't make sense. Because, the people around them didn't even show a trace of panic when faced with the ruthless killings of the two men. Instead, he was laughing. Smile slightly. Every face is filled with warmth and peace, a smile that makes people feel like spring breeze. But it was this kind of warm smile that made Zuyuner feel a chill in her back. Beside the two of them, a pile of corpses had been laid out. Mutilated corpses. Blood also dyed the streets red. All the vehicles turned on their double flashing lights in a civilized manner, and then parked on the side of the road, neatly and orderly. The two of them stood in the middle of the road, like clowns being watched, clowns being smiled by a group of good citizens. The good citizens of Gotham City watched for a while. Almost at the same time, it was like calm water suddenly boiling. Hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands. Zuyuner and Suzayasu couldn't tell how many good citizens were around them for a while. But there were countless whispers coming from all directions at the same time. Is this the criminal? He killed someone, he is a criminal, that's right. It turns out this is the legendary criminal. But the law states that crime cannot be committed in Gotham City. But, criminal means someone who commits a crime. That. All the buzz. Suddenly and strangely, they converged into the same sentence. If we kill criminals, it doesn't count as a crime dash. Zuyuner's expression changed drastically. Everyone, almost at the same time, took out their pistols. Just imagine for a moment, being surrounded by thousands of people and being pointed at by thousands of pistols at the same time. Even Suzayasu, who was calm, could not help but change his face slightly. Bang 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 bang. The continuous sound of gunshots drowned out what Zuyuner wanted to say next. But it doesn't really matter what the sentence is. The important thing is, the continuous gunshots were like fireworks at a festival. Gotham, which had been silent for many years, instantly became lively. 7122:13. In fact, it is quite convenient to have a countdown timer. If only that countdown wasn't set on a skull. Yulin silently glanced at the changes on the sin list and speculated on the actions of the two women. Li Erpangxiang rushed to the street with great pride. In front of the traffic light. Pedestrians are polite. Be courteous to each other. No one runs a red light. No cars were driving across the line. No cars honking their horns. Someone helped the old man cross the road. Passers-by were feeding white pigeons in the square, creating a peaceful scene where humans and birds were united. You told me this is Gotham City. After staying in place for a full 20 seconds, Li Erpang finally reacted. This seemed to be a bit different from the Gotham he remembered. No. These are totally two different things. What about Gotham City, a city with simple folk customs? What about the promised talent coming out of Arkham? Are you making trouble? The fat man felt very sad. He originally thought he could experience a real-life Gotham game, but he didn't expect to encounter this situation. The folk customs are really simple. You guys are making it difficult for me, the fat man. Li Erpang looked at his left palm and then at his right palm. It seems that he is deciding to use that hand to destroy his precious conscience. Yilin thought for a moment, then stood silently on the edge. Li Erpang hesitated for a full minute. Finally, Li Erpang spat on the ground. I've decided. It's you. Xiao, who has been with me for many years. Li Erpang rolled up his right sleeve. Yilin was slightly startled. Why the right hand? He. Li Erpang suddenly laughed and said mysteriously, because, the right hand has murderous aura and can ward off evil spirits. Yilin. Li Erpang directly raised his murderous right hand and slapped one of the middle-aged men who looked relatively strong. Snapped. The big man didn't even react. He was slapped to the ground in an instant, and his neck made a snapping sound. Died. 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 At the same time, Li Erpang also received a kill prompt. 10 sin points. Like mosquito legs. The corners of the fat man's mouth twitched. 10 o'clock. Bullshit. Well, if I could choose, I would like to be a good person. The moment Li Erpang decided to temporarily wipe out his conscience and successfully become a bad guy, the surrounding area suddenly became quiet. There was silence. What are you watching me do? Isn't it just shark? Li Erpang was a little frightened by the crowd's gaze. When Yilin saw this, her face was expressionless and she took a few steps back. Then, follow me like a shadow was turned on. Suddenly, the silent crowd suddenly started talking. Kill people, kill people, kill people. Is he a legendary criminal? So this is the criminal, right? Then if we kill the criminal, it doesn't violate Gotham law, right? The peaceful smiles on the faces of all good citizens suddenly became distorted. The style of painting suddenly became wrong. Li Erpang was stunned for a moment, and then the next moment, his scalp went numb, as if high-voltage electricity was connected, and he was enlightened. Pull out the cold, pull out the cold. Half of them took out exquisite small pistols. Half of them took out grenades from their crotches. What the hell? Li Erpang's narrowed eyes instantly widened a bit. Kill the criminal. Kill, kill, kill. Oh yeah. In an instant, the festive atmosphere filled Gotham's good citizens with a sea of joy. It's like a holiday. A barrage of grenades was thrown at Li Erpang. This is indeed the real Gotham City. In an instant, Li Erpang was submerged in a burst of bright explosion fire.